Dayton City Council, please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everybody can mic up. Need a motion and second to approve the agenda.
I'll motion.
There you go. Any discussion, any changes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion carries. What?
We're going to continue with.
We'll just table it when we get there.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Go ahead.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay, so then I'll need a motion and a second for consent.
So moved. Second.
Scott and Travis, discussion.
I don't have anything.
Right. Well, that's kind of weird, I do, but. Go ahead.
Payment of claims, Marty. I noticed that there's some cost to something on West French Lake Road.
Yeah, that was,
$5,000. Why should we be paying for any work that we're doing out there now?
Sorry, so there was money, was that for soil borings or something like that?
I thought it said some kind of fabric or something. That had nothing to do with any of the grading they've done this spring.
No, I'm not aware of any stuff for fabric out there.
Okay.
What was it?
I gotta go and find it.
You know what, yeah, I noticed it too, but I assumed it had some. Okay.
As long as it didn't have anything to do with the grading that work that they're doing.
No,
Because in my opinion, we shouldn't be on the hook for any of that.
I'm pretty sure it's not there. If his fabric is something different, I'm not sure what that is. I'll look into it though, Scott.
It says it's for geotechnical. It's
That's
gotta be
geotechnical, that's soil borings.
soil
I would've
borings.
thought.
Yep.
Okay. Just a question. We have a streetlight bill on there for $2,300. What is
How much?
the electricity?
Oh.
What is that like? Ring a bell at all? Or
Let me look and see.
it just seemed like a.
Do you know who was it from? Who was it to?
What
Is
provider?
it Connexus or is it Excel?
I think it was. Actually, you know what? I'm not sure.
So it would have been a new, it sounds like a new install.
Yeah. I don't
Oh,
have.
is that what? Okay. Okay. As long as we
If it's
can kind of. I'm sure it's valid. I was just curious, really. Okay. I guess I don't have anything else. Anybody have anything else?
I do
Okay.
not. No.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Consent agenda is passed. Open forum. Open forum is limited to 3 minutes for non-agenda items. State your name and address. No council action will be taken, and items will be referred back to staff. Do we have anybody here for open forum? Do we have anybody online? Nope.
Do not.
All right.
Well, I have a question.
Oh, sure.
Do I need to come up there?
Is it involving one of our agenda items?
Well, I don't know, it's hard for me to read what I got here. I'm interested in Fernbrook Lane, so is that on the agenda?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Item D.
And if you guys could speak up a little bit. I'm older, even though I have hearing aids.
Chris, can you increase the volume in the, thanks.
They're going to increase the volume.
It's right on the edge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's okay. Okay, staff consultant council updates.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. I just have two updates tonight. One of them is related to the audit. So the audit is completed minus one major item that is still outstanding, which is unrelated to this year's audit, but we realized during this year's audit that we have not added any developer given assets over the last 10 plus years. So I have to go back for 10 plus years and find out every developer asset that we received during construction. So like streets and water and sewer for every development that we put in the last 10 plus years. So that'll be a wonderful project for myself with our short staff.
So that's
So-
just an
So
equity
we'll
kind of
affect
a
the-
thing?
Yep,
depreciation.
it's an equity thing, it's a depreciation thing, so that'll be a
Okay.
much more large project that we need to do. But everything else is done, minus that. So we will go forward with that process and we'll follow up. So the audit normally would be presented in May. It will likely be June at the earliest.
Do you know how that was,
Missed.
How it was missed?
well, how it was missed by, apparently the audit missed it and.
Yep, auditors missed it for many, many years. So we were just talking this year and they said, well, what about those things? And I said, well, we don't have any on the listing. So
And they said, oh,
they said, oh, yeah, you should.
okay.
Okie dokie.
Your guess would be there's not much of an impact,
Oh, no, there's
It's a
a
big deal.
big impact. I would say
but to
north of $100 million plus impact.
I understand that part. I mean, as far as the various funds go, we won't know until.
Yeah, we won't know until it's all done, so I have to
No,
go
that-
back through. Water and sewer would be the ones that are impacted the most, because none of those assets, like the trunk line in the ground and everything, have been added
Okay.
over the last number of years.
So
But
we wouldn't be seeing like the depreciation? of it?
correct, exactly. So we didn't
Got
know
it.
we were needing to be depreciating those items, which we should be, but
Sure.
yeah, we have not been doing that. So
Okay.
it'll be a significant impact on this year's audit and will likely affect us in the future, but we will take a look at it and see and then adjust and go from there. Next item I have, which is a little less impactful, is that next Wednesday, the 19th, we will have an employee well-being breakfast provided, part of our employee wellness program, and we'll have City Hall closed until 10 a.m. We did post that on the front
Okay.
door already. So that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Bet you're having pancakes.
Waffles, I believe, but close.
We got zero.
When was that?
That is next Wednesday, the 19th. If council would like to join, you are most certainly welcome. I think it starts at 8 in the Activity Center?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Amy?
I have no updates other than just a reminder, we have an employee out on vacation and we have had some retirements. So we are very short-staffed and residents have been very gracious, and just a reminder, we are doing what we can, but things are taking a little bit longer as processes are being learned.
Ready.
Mayor and Council, I have a few updates tonight. Firstly, an update on the wellhead water treatment. I should be getting the draft 90% plans on Thursday this week, which I need to review, submit changes to Black and Beach. They will then submit the revised version to Minnesota Department of Health for their review. They're aware of the project. They've been warned that the documents come in, so we're expecting a fast turnaround, probably a 2-week turnaround from them. We are starting to look at some of the pre-purchase items that we were talking about. There's a couple of electrical panels and things that we're looking to get the longest lead time on. So we're reviewing the specs on those. And the shop drawings and that kind of thing to make sure that they fit to the specification, and then we'll get those ordered up. They will be funded from the $4 million grant that we got from the federal government, so that's how that's going to go. One question on that, being as we're trying to act urgently on this, how do I need to come to you guys for approval on that for all of these items as we go through, or can I email you to say that we're doing that? What's the most convenient way of doing it?
What?
Just as long as we know what change orders are coming ahead of time.
Well,
Nothing to change yet, but I don't
yeah,
think
there's
we've
not,
approved it.
we haven't
Moving
approved
ahead.
any spending yet, have we? For this part?
We did talk about pre-ordering some of this.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think
just-
you'll get any pushback. It's just, the process would require us to approve it.
Correct, yes.
Approve
We'd
it.
have to have payment of claims through that process, but that would be typical, and
Oh,
we would let you know that.
So you want to handle it through payment of claims?
Yeah.
So-
Otherwise, we can have a separate line item for it, just for these one
As long
items,
as,
which is fine.
my only concern would be is that we had a ballpark estimate, that it doesn't blow the doors off of that.
Sure, yep.
I think in the next set of plans, we'll have a much tighter estimate on
Okay.
what that cost is going to be. So they're really tying it up. So it's going to be pretty accurate what the numbers are on this 90% set of plans.
And what do you foresee is needing to be spent early on here for this long lead stuff?
I'm thinking the first couple of items is going to be something around $150,000. So it's not a huge amount, but they're just the longest lead times on those items.
Can
I
we
don't
keep
know
them
what you-
separate so we can keep an eye on
We
them?
can have it as a separate line item if you'd like. Likely it'll just be this one time for long lead items.
Yeah.
And then we'll have approval
Yeah.
of the actual going out for bids
Going
and everything else
forward.
after that. It'll just be a one-time item. So it's
I
not going to
think
be
So this is some of the major equipment that they're
the
specifying. in
electrical
the
stuff.
plans,
Yep.
But for the actual construction work, that's still gonna be a bid
Yes.
package
Yep.
that
Yeah.
will go out for
Yeah,
bid.
that's still got to be in bid on from May. We're going to be out to bid on May for that stuff. So the rest of it will go through that. The stuff is being spec'd by the contractor who's going to be doing the job. We always use total controls for all of our electronics and SCADA stuff, just so we have that continuity from one project to another and they integrate seamlessly. So this stuff is going to be spec'd by them, and they know what they need to put in there. So I'm pretty confident that we're not going to get undone on this.
And have we gotten any detail on the $198,000 that was spent for design yet? Well, how many hours or what kind of
Yep,
time?
I will have an
Yep.
update for you this Thursday. I was going to put it in last week's update, but I didn't.
You were
They
still in
didn't
shot
make
from the
time
audit,
to put
right?
that together.
Okay, sure.
We're still running a chicken for the head
So,
costs.
are you looking for a motion or just a warm fuzzy that I think we'll be fine?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I understand the struggle myself, just at our plant, so
Okay.
makes sense
Like
to
you
get that
said,
stuff
just so
coming.
that we don't have no $2 million surprise at the end of this.
Yeah, I think,
No, I think this is just trying to keep the project moving forward. I don't think there's going to be any big
timely
surprises on
fashion.
this.
Yeah,
okay.
I get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll have it as a separate line item.
Sure.
just so
That's
you're
fine.
aware. Or a separate item on the next agenda.
Okay. Water Trail. I've got a meeting in St. Paul for a presentation in National Park Service tomorrow. There's going to be a lot of other agencies there in other cities. We're going to be presenting our Water Trail plan along with MSA. This is fairly significant as it's the first step in the National Park Service launching their Water Trail initiative. So it's kind of a big deal for them and for us. I applied for some grant funding from Representative Dean Phillips, and Senator Tina Smith reached out to us to further this effort as well. So they're both forwarding grant funding for phase 1 of the Water Trail project to the Appropriations Committee. We've asked for the full amount of $3,830,000 for the trail access points at Gooding Park and Elsie Stevens Park. So that sounds pretty promising. Hopefully we get some money from those guys. Hennepin County Culvert and Stabilization Project. At the weekly meeting this morning, the schedule was discussed. The project is still on the same timeline for completion in mid-July. They're working on grading, getting pipe and supplies on site. There's been some work completed on guardrail replacement. They're also coordinating with utilities for relocation of equipment. I've updated the website with the new 3-week outlook and some update notes from the meeting this morning. So they will be updated every Tuesday as we get those in. Some general surf potholes. We've got some hot mix going in this week. We worked yesterday and today on East French Lake Road on 113th. We've been getting a mix from St. Paul plant, but we found out today they've run out of oil. So I think there was a bit of a bigger run than they were expecting down there. So I'm not sure when they're going to be getting oil, but we're going to transition into doing some crack sealing for the next couple of days until we can get back to the hot mix. Hydrant sealing, hydrant flushing. We could seal them, I guess.
I don't know.
The guys have been flushing hydrants in the northeast and the Old Village this week. They should be pretty much finished tomorrow on those areas. It leaves us with the areas supplied by Maple Grove and Champlin. We need to coordinate that with those cities, but that's going to happen in the next couple of weeks. But we will, when those neighbourhoods are going to be done, we'll be putting out boards, and there'll be a Facebook post and a website update as well. That's all I have.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have no updates to share. As you're probably aware, the chief and lieutenant are away in Duluth for a chiefs conference.
Okay.
So the chief gave me his seat tonight. Did not give me any of his talking points. So
Cool,
I
okay.
think I'll stay in my lane and pass the microphone.
That's fine.
All right.
Thank you.
Good
Jason?
enough.
Scott?
I don't really have anything, I don't believe.
Travis?
Nothing from me, no.
I got nothing. Dave?
Two quick things. Marty, maybe you have better insight. So we had heard that the closure on Dayton River Road was going to run through mid-July. And I got a letter in the mail from the county yesterday, Friday, I guess, saying that the project was expected to last a few weeks. And so, is it weeks or months?
I think it's months. I think it's definitely going to be through to mid-July is the timeline that they're working. Maybe that's a few weeks in county timeline. I don't know.
Can you
They don't
provide
look for rain
that to me,
days?
please?
Happy to, sure.
I think it's on the city website.
That letter?
Yeah, the letter that got sent out to all the residents is on the city website. I posted it there as well.
So, okay. So you think it's wrong?
Oh, it's definitely wrong. From their timeline that's up there, the timeline is definitely mid-July.
Well, they're
Can
still
we
hauling
provide
stuff
some
in. so-
commentary
Yeah.
next to that thing so residents don't look at it and say, oh, here's the answer? Or,
If we have the letter posted on the website and the letter says a couple weeks, in reality it's a few months, it's misleading, I think. So
Okay, I
not
can
intentionally so, but I think it just ends up being that.
Okay, I can take that down as well. But the 3-week timeline is up on the website as well with all the dates and what's happening.
3
at
weeks
one time.
per section is kind of what it said, right?
Yes, something along those
Does it refer to
lines.
like a section?
Well, it's the same from both ends.
I was going to
Yeah.
say,
No,
it
it's-
shouldn't matter. It's
It
so
dead ends in the middle
They
I
got
don't
to
know.
cross the road regardless,
today.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'll remove
the
that
other
from the website.
comment, and I know this is a county project, it says road closed, local traffic only, which tells people that maybe you can scoot through.
Yeah.
And so we've got a lot of cars that still go by, and then I see them 3 minutes later going by the other way.
Because they're used to being
After-
lied to about the road.
Right? So it really ought to have a sign on it also that says dead end or no outlet or something like that.
And I think
Road
that
is really closed.
Yeah.
I think it's posted that way because it still needs to have access availability to school buses, trash collection, post office, and the local residents who are accessing that. So if you put a full stop up there, it could be misleading for everybody. So that's why they've done it as, I believe, as a no through traffic.
Yeah. Well, they'll figure it out eventually.
Well,
In a couple.
Yeah, you got a
weeks
couple of weeks to
or
figure it.
months, whatever it is. Actually, I don't mind it being a dead end. It's really pleasant. In other news, there's a State of the Parks meeting being put on by Three Rivers on April 19th. Is anybody planning to attend that?
I was going to plan on attending it, but then we have the breakfast due that same day, so I don't know. I'll let you know.
I'm
Clone
aware.
yourself.
I would love to clone myself. That'll be fantastic.
I don't know if this should be passed on to the Parks
I was going
Committee.
to say, yeah, maybe.
And
pass it on.
I'm curious enough that I'm probably going to go.
Sure.
But
I had planned on
make
it.
sure everybody knows. Scott, I know you got it in your mail tonight, so take a look at it.
It's in
And
the pile.
we could carpool.
I'm not going.
All right, that's all I got.
Got to fertilize my grass.
I've got 2 things tonight. So Parks Commission last week, the Parks Commission's working with Marty, thankfully, to figure out, they have a priority list of kind of paths that they want to work on this year and trying to get pricing and then working that against their budget to figure out which ones they're going to actually try to get done this year with the help of Public Works. And I asked them about Deerwood, since we were talking about the lights on Deerwood. They said it makes sense if we're going to do lights on Deerwood to do a sidewalk or path at the same time, seeing as they'd be slightly different lights depending on which one we chose. So that was their feedback on it, at least from when asked. I also, John Hoffman had a get-together in Rogers.
Space that out. I forgot about it.
Rogers that I found out via roundabout from Scott. So I attended that. He's a wonderful gentleman, really seems to care about Dayton. He did say that that money that we thought we'd get this year that kind of fell off, that he's trying to get it back on, and it's on his short list of things, so hopefully that will actually get done this year. It's like the $6 million, whatever it was.
$6.9 million.
There you go. Perfect. They're trying to get done this year, and when he was asked for his top 8 projects, we made the top 3, so which is good.
To his credit, he was very responsive to that sort of urgent request when we found out we had fallen off the other bonding bill. So I hope it does stick, but I think that he deserves a lot of credit for getting that back in the mix.
I agree, 100%. I also talked to him about some of the lack of response that we're getting from the county on the road issues that we're having. He had some ideas that I brought to Zach that Zach and I are going to work on trying to see how much of them may come to fruition to try to help get more involvement from the county on getting our county road issues fixed before somebody dies versus after. So,
County or Kevin would also probably appreciate some backup, because I have a feeling he's just running headstrong into brick walls down there.
it may be. When he was here, I took it as, the roads will get fixed, and they get fixed, don't worry about it, they'll end up on the plan sometime. So I get a different vibe from him when he's in front of us, but if you have different conversations with him, maybe he's not being forthcoming to us, but there's some stuff going on behind the scenes. So John was Mr. Senator Hoffman was very willing to work with us on that and bring some other people in to try to help get things moving on our county road issues and deterioration and intersection issues we're having. So it was great to get to talk to him. Those are my 2 updates for the week.
Okay. Item C, Wright County Public Health Statewide Health Improvement Partnership. Come on up.
Chief Hendrickson had to run out for a call, but if he has updates, I'll have him email him on to you guys. Thanks.
Good evening, Council. We have, Mayor and Council, we have a representative from SHIP with Wright County here. I do not want to mispronounce the name, so Miss Sin will be presenting. And take it away.
Good evening. Thanks for these presentations. My name is Kai. I'm with Wright County Public Health. So I'm here to do a presentation on SHIP. So what SHIP is, it's a statewide health improvement partnerships. We received some funds from the MDH. Yeah. I have some slides that you guys can take a look at. So what SHIP does is SHIP is focused on creating a healthy community for Minnesota residents. We focus on health eating, more activity out in the community, living in a free tobacco communities, as well as a mental health or well-being for Minnesota. So pretty much the purpose of this SHIP is to reduce chronic conditions among the resident here in Minnesota. So we work with local community leaders, partners, and expertise in those fields who are interested in working on those projects. So for SHIP, we focus on 4 area setting, which is MN Eat, MN Move, MN Breathe, which is MN Tobacco free, and then the well-being, which is under a mental health. And then in that 4 area setting, we also focus on a 5 setting, which is community, workplace, healthcare, school, and childcare. So SHIPs also focus on a lot of long-term PSC change, policy, system, and environment. So we create a program where the community or even workplace can keep on continue changing those like unhealthy behavior in a workplace or at a school in any location that they're interested in. So in the graph here, we have a short-term, like just an event based on like one-day event, and we also have focus on a long-term ongoing event. So you can see here for short-term behavior change, we're not going to see much results in like if you do one-day event or one session event on this compared to like a long-term goals that the partners can set up too. So for MN Eat, so for community, we did a lot of, in Wright County, we did a lot of projects on a food RX, food shelf, even superfoods for a community to utilize too. We partner up with a farmers market, even a local community organizations in providing a healthy food at a community settings. And then for workplace, we So if any businesses are interested in having a healthy food station at workplace, or even like a chamber, if you want to have any work like healthy food stations, we provide those for them as well. We provide materials that they need, such as like fridge, a table, just some material that they need to have those programs running. And for food, for healthcare, we have a baby cafe as well as a breastfeeding. We work this with a lot of schools and a healthcare setting as well, such as Alina or Central Care. And then in schools, we did a lot of projects in schools, either a healthy food company like cafeteria or change out the school menus. We also does that. We're not doing much on the healthcare this year, but previous year we've done a lot of breastfeeding or lactation room for a community partners. But if any partner are interested in healthcare, we can do that as well for them. For Move, in the community, we did a lot of park, rec. We partner with our recreation center in creating a walking path for the community to utilize. And then in workplace, we also providing a workstations for the employees to utilize. We can also build a tennis court or basketball courts for them to utilize. And then in school right now, so our most recent projects are working with school on the Move. We work with Rock for School in creating a safe route to schools. We're putting a stop signs and those lights for the students to cross over from their home to school. So we done quite a few of safe route to school for Wright County residents. For tobacco use, we have a SHIP coordinator that focused on a OPI, just more like promotion and educations. If any businesses are interested in creating a policy to implement that in their workplace, we are doing that as well. The well-being. So well-being right now, few years back, Buffalo went through some things that happening there. So in the community, we're able to create a Buffalo Strong, where pretty much every year we're hosting some type of Buffalo Strong event in the community to help get rid of some of trauma and how to cope with those the past events that happened. And then in workplace, we can also working on creating a worksite wellness for the workplace as well. In the schools, right now we're creating a trauma-enforced education for the students and teachers to utilize those things. And as well as we have a person that are doing a QPR training, which is question, persuade, and refer for parents and teachers as well. So on the information that I just shared earlier, we have some project guides that you can also take a look at. In that paper, we have a ton of projects that you can do, or you can propose a new project. We are open to expanding to other projects that the cities are also interested in doing. On the project form, in the front page, we have a QPR code from the interest form. If you're interested in any project or are interested in proposing a new project, you can just scan that and then enter those information onto our website. So we have Keith, he's the person in charge of the SHIP in general, and then I have Daya, which is my coworker. She's not here today, and me also on the SHIP funding. Any questions?
No from me.
I'm curious.
Yes.
In your guide here, there's a couple of things listed around local land use planning and comprehensive planning, along with parks planning.
Yes.
Is that sort of assistance available mainly as funding or grants, or is it physical assistance in terms of manpower?
So SHIP is a funding program. So if cities are interested in implementing a safe route to school, just like a sideway, building sideway, we can also fund those things too. So our funds range from 500 to 10K. It's depend on what your interest is. We might be able to expand that funding for you as well. If you plan on doing something like a bigger project for the community to utilize, connecting safe those driveway, even walkway for the community to use.
So that might be another grant or funding opportunity that we could take advantage of when
Yes.
we're doing some of this work.
Yes.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know.
You're good. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Item D, transportation plan, facts and findings.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Kendra Lindahl from Landform will be here to give an update on facts and findings of the information that she's found during her transportation plan process and provide us some direction and such. So take it away, Kendra. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, Council. I will be brief. I was here last month, and we've talked about some of this, but this is an update. We did do this RFP to take a look at all the studies you've done in the last 20 years, compile the information from those studies, which we put in a table. We just tried to summarize it very quickly and simply for you. The idea is to prepare that information. You've identified what I'm calling option 2, the retain the current Fernbrook alignment option. And we are holding a public hearing on May 8th to share that information, and then we will move forward with an adoption of that comprehensive plan amendment. So when we met on the 2nd, we talked about the fact that the current comprehensive plan, which I'm showing on the screen, this alignment of Fernbrook, is not the council's preferred option. There's another alternative that is on a later slide. And so when we met with Hennepin County and Metropolitan Council staff after that, we shared that with them. They had no concerns about that option. They supported all 3 options, I would say. We talked a little bit about funding, and you won't be surprised that neither volunteered any, but we'll continue to talk with them about funding as the project moves forward. The 3 options really, again, this is more for any members of the public, but all 3 options that the city has looked at over the years do provide a north-south connection through the city. The option 2 provides a more direct, I think, north-south alignment than the current plan, however. All 3 options require land acquisition, and all 3 have new road construction costs. It varies a little bit about who's impacted by it, but there's always going to be some impact anytime you build a new road or expand a road. So we shared with you in the summary a little bit about where those laid out. With option 2, we can still continue to acquire some of the land through development, meaning some of the right-of-way as development occurs, which is the city's preferred option because it's the least expensive option. There will be a need for some acquisition, likely more proactively on the city's part if the land adjacent to Fernbrook in particular doesn't redevelop. But again, the Met Council and county supported all 3 options. Just for anyone in the audience or at home, this is the current comprehensive plan alignment. This is option, what I called option 2, which is retain the Fernbrook alignment and have a more direct north-south route here and an east-west here. This was shown in a plan presented this summer. And there was a 3rd option, which looked very similar, but we sort of shifted Fernbrook to the west. And again, option 2 is the plan we're proceeding ahead with. So the May open house on May 8th will be here at the council chambers. That gives us an opportunity to live stream it so more people can attend. We did put that in the newsletter, the last newsletter, and we'll be working with staff to send out notices to impacted landowners. This is an opportunity for them to learn about the change to the comprehensive plan and provide feedback. So we'll bring that to the Planning Commission when we hold the public hearing, and then to you ultimately when you make the decision. But it's important to have that open house because it is a change and the landowners should understand so they can make decisions about their property. The comprehensive plan amendment is focused on the transportation chapter. It is a policy change, and the city has a high level of discretion for that. But as we make that change, it allows the city to plan for those street improvements, landowners and the city, but it does not include a detailed site design. And I know we talked about that last month, so I just want to again reiterate that this is a new version of the map. This would be the comprehensive plan map. We worked with SRF to update their graphics. And so it really is a fat marker Fernbrook keeps on its current alignment. There is an east-west road where it's shown as sort of on a section line and avoiding wetlands, but as land develops and we acquire that, we'll really tweak that alignment. And then Zanzibar comes up from 81 and kind of wiggles through and then ultimately heads north. As I mentioned, we would acquire right-of-way in sections. It's possible that we could construct some of these street sections in increments, and we'll continue to work with the council and engineering as that land gets acquired and there's a possibility for those improvements. The land use amendment is not part of this scope of work. This change, the transportation plan, doesn't require a change to the land use. We can keep the land use. I know that's another discussion, and I've been talking with Zach. I know he's been talking with you about getting a separate meeting on the calendar to really talk about the goals of other comprehensive plan amendments. But the good news is this plan, we've got the maps. We'll share these with the public. These are the updated versions of the comprehensive plan maps, future jurisdiction, future functional class. These reflect the new option 2 alignment. The map on the left here shows updated traffic counts, future numbers of lanes. All of the maps in the transportation chapter will be updated. So in your packet was the old version because I didn't have these yet. This is the new version of what was in the packet this evening. So upcoming meetings are the May 8th open house here at City Hall. That'll be the opportunity to present this information to the public, bring them up to speed on where the council's at, give them an opportunity to provide comments. And then on June 1st, we'll hold a public hearing on the comprehensive plan amendment at the Planning Commission. That formal item then comes to the council on June 13th for action, and then we will submit to the Met Council. And the good news from our meeting is this will be considered administrative review. I really thought they'd make us go through the whole process, so I was pleased that that's probably a 30-day timeline instead of the 90 days I told you before. So that's good news. We tonight really just want you to affirm option 2 for the plan that we share with the public at the open house and hold the public hearing for. And I'm happy to answer any questions about the staff report.
Yeah, I've got quite a few things. Anybody else want to?
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So the findings of fact were kind of an accumulation of historical things. Some of that, I think, there's some stuff that's crept in there that I don't know that I agree with. First off, there's an easy one. Option 2 shows that it's connecting to 101 Brockton Lane. Page 104 of the packet. I don't know what page that would be.
It would be page 2 of their document, yep.
So yeah, under option 2, they've got Brockton Lane as the southwest corner.
Are you talking about on the map or that text on the
text.
plan?
The
Okay.
text, it says
Text.
101.
And I mean, that tells me that chunk was probably pulled from the 2014 or.
Yep, probably. Like, it should say County Road 81 is what it should say.
Right. What was the other thing I had there? Oh, so part of option 2 then goes on to state, I'm assuming it's kind of implied that we would do this. That Fernbrook would be widened to a 3-lane roadway or potentially a 4-lane roadway if traffic volumes are sufficient. I don't know, I mean, that would be up to the county, right? So that would be, I'm just wondering why we're making these statements that wouldn't necessarily be our preference or our input.
Prerogative, really. The county makes that decision.
Yeah, it seems like.
Well, a couple things, Mr. Mayor, council members. Again, this was really was taking some of the data that was previously in the studies and to be
Sure.
consistent across them. We have consistently, since that first study back in, what year was that first one done, talked about these things in those terms back in 2008. And so I was trying to be consistent about it. I think long-term, regardless of who does it, that road, traffic volumes are continue to increase.
Yep.
I drove up there on my way here again just to kind of remind myself what's happening there. And kudos to the guy who was riding his bike on that corner. That is a risky move. But
Yep.
in any case, this is the language that was used. You're right. It is currently a county road. When the county does road improvements, there's often a city participation. So
Sure.
when we spoke with the county, it was very, very difficult to pin them down at all on road improvements. And
Okay.
I think we know this road probably warrants some improvements today based on what these studies have shown. But you're right, it is today a county road, and we are assuming it remains a county road.
The county closed Dayton Road, didn't even tell us that we're going to do it until we all thought the same day. The county does not talk to the city about it. The county does what they want when it comes to roads. They seem to not care about Dayton roads.
I know I came to City Hall that day and said, hey guys, what's going on?
Yeah. We don't know. So I think there's a big assumption that the
Yeah.
county's going to care what the city has to say. The county's going to do what they want to do because
Yeah.
they're the county and they don't seem to care what we have to say.
Although historically they will say, and if you want to participate,
Yeah, if you want to
and
give
if-
money, then we'll do it.
Right.
Yeah, and
I just think the reality is, on this current alignment, I think traffic volumes are continuing to increase, and eventually something's going to need to be done.
Yep.
And we do hope, and we spoke to them about that. We do hope that they will put it on their list. It is not on their list, and Hennepin County's priorities are,
whatever they are.
not out
So,
here.
so that leads me into some more bullets here.
Yep.
A lot of these, so on page 105, where we had quite a few of these assertions.
Page 3.
Page 3 of your,
The third, yeah.
So I'll now kind of go in row of the, in order of the rows. The construction, a lot of the information there assumes that there's going to be traffic relief in the near future. And even if we were to stick with the X or do the option 3, the traffic on that road is not going to be relieved anytime soon until we get that top end connected. And right now, our plans show that at 2040 or 2050. So I really don't. And that's not just with that row. It seems like that assumption was made throughout these rows. For instance, the development row. No, that's something different. The public support thing that we did, the little poll that we did not make it clear to people, at least from my point of view, that they are not going to see relief no matter which plan we pick for the next 20 years. And I think they were under the assumption that they would.
And Mayor, if I may, I think the biggest, having been at that meeting, that last meeting, and reading through this, it's so focused on Fernbrook, and I think the city is very focused on Dayton Parkway, and that's more the focus because that will be a Dayton City road, where right now everything's focused on Fernbrook. That's a county road. They're going to do with that what they may, and I think that's when you say, it's going to take 20, 30 years to bring that one end up, you're talking about Dayton Parkway, correct?
Well, it depends. So the X would be the connection, that top right leg.
Yep.
The bypass is option 3. That would not be
Yeah.
the Parkway. That would just be the bypass. And even that one, we're not going to connect.
You're talking decades, probably. until-
And so a lot of the stuff is a little frustrating me because it looks to me like these.
Like we're looking to do
this whole
something tomorrow.
table, well, and
No,
the
we're
whole
not.
table kind of makes them, even the safety row assumed that it would impact traffic in the near future, and it's not going to. So, on river crossing, we actually got, at least from what I remember the meeting, we got a different story that the option 2 was the best alignment if we knew we would get a river crossing. I think it's pretty clear that at some point there's going to be a river crossing in maybe 20 or 30 years, or 40.
40, 50.
But at some
Really
point, the state's going to come to us with enough money that it's going to be hard to turn down. But So it just seems like a lot of these things were set up for an answer that was already almost baked in, and I'm not necessarily pointing that at you, because I know this is an accumulation of stuff over the years. And one other thing is, this doesn't look at total consumption by the roads. I mean, that X is gonna consume a lot more real estate and have a lot more pavement than the other two options. Obviously, the bypass would also, and that's not weighed into the mix. It's just, it seems like some of these things were aimed at an answer. And I know over the years, the council, to me, the council should have spoke up, a decade ago when they had some of these, because I talked to previous members, and I don't think they were happy with the X. They just did nothing about it. And then so it sat there on the plan. Even when we did the 2014 comp plan amendment, I remember at the open house, those three options were shown there, but there was no changes made. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm just a little concerned that these findings aren't necessarily it looks like there's some bias in there indicating what direction the various documents over the years have looked at. Does that make sense?
I think that's accurate. I do think if I look back as a person who was not sitting at the table like you were, if I look back at those documents, I think there was, I might not say bias, but clearly there was a preferred option.
There was an answer already.
And so I think sometimes that may have come out, which is why I did want to specifically footnote where these references were coming from, because it was just us summarizing that info. But to your point, I think when we go to the May 8th open house, we're going to be showing the old plan and the new plan, and we're going to start to build the findings of fact for the change, which is not this table. This table was intended to be a historical summary of the facts that we've gathered before. But I think moving forward with the comprehensive plan amendment, that's the time we tell our story about, we believe it will require less right-of-way acquisition. It will provide a straighter route to the future potential river crossing. Those kinds of findings of fact that you just spoke of, Mr. Mayor, come, I think, at that next step. This was really just to kind of highlight some of the information you've seen before and that the residents have seen before, not to have a value statement on any of them. So
that makes a lot of sense. But just, I don't want to lose the other point that you were making around when we get to the comprehensive plan, that we have a flavor of what the timing of this whole thing is. That we're not carrying forward some illusion that this is happening over the next 10 years, that this has got some major things that have to happen before any of this comes into play.
Yes.
I think
this is where do you want to be when you grow up. This is not where do you want to be in 3 years. Yeah.
The other thing I think that's going to really drive the county to do something is we're not going to relieve traffic on Fernbrook anytime soon. When we pave Zanzibar, that's going to add traffic. When Maple Grove sends their parkway to Fernbrook, that's going to add traffic. Fernbrook's in for a hit in the next 5 years, no matter what we do. And at some point, we could do all kinds of activity that will relieve traffic in 30 or 40 years, but my guess is it's going to break earlier. My guess is it's going to break in the next 5 to 10 years. County's going to have to step in.
To me, the blacktop on Fernbrook right now is not going to hold up for another 15 years. It's just not. So at that time, the county's going to be forced. So
we're kind of setting up options for something that I think the county's going to have absolutely no choice but to fix. Again, Maple Grove Parkway, once it connects, I think you're going to see.
That's going to bring a bunch across.
Yeah.
And I hate to say this, but in fairness to the county, if they ever looked at our comprehensive plan, we were doing all kinds of things to Fernbrook that didn't involve anything on the existing Fernbrook. And now we're now we're moving down a path of saying, okay, Fernbrook's yours and you do what you want to do with it. Which I think is the right thing to do, but we're kind of tossing it back in their lap. We were looking at a bypass and an X that didn't touch
Sending the
that,
wrong message.
really didn't touch that road, so why would it be on their long-term
Yeah.
plan? So now we're saying it better be, and I think they ought to get that message, but I'm just trying to be fair to them, that we didn't give them any reason for it to be on their plans either.
Well, I think the Maple Grove Parkway has probably been there for a little while. But yeah, that's probably a good point.
Can I ask a
Yeah,
question?
have at it.
So at the open house, you mentioned that you're going to talk about the current, and then what you're referring to as option 2 in this. Is option 3 still going to be presented, or are you just presenting the 2 options?
I think I was just planning to show the 2.
Okay. Yeah, I think
It adds confusion if you.
that's
Right, that's
yes.
not on the
Yep.
table any longer, and folks who want to hear about that, we can certainly direct them back to this meeting.
Yeah.
But it's really, here's the current plan, here's the plan that we're going to adopt.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. It becomes so many options, it gets hard for them to keep it straight, so I think that's a better way to present it. And then at the open house, will you personally be here to present it?
Yes,
And we'll be having 1 meeting, not 2,
correct.
and it will be recorded and live streamed?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. Awesome.
And-
Because part of the problem we had last time was, and I sat through both of them, what the people in the first meeting heard is now what the people in the second meeting heard. They were completely different voiceovers, and so I think it's better to have one, have it recorded. If people can't make the one, then they can listen to it on YouTube or through the city website or whatever, but I think that's a much more consistent messaging then for everybody to hear.
And
So I'm
for
happy
some
with it.
reason, the resident opinion seemed to have radically shifted
Yes.
between one and the other one. So yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
I don't, do we have any more questions? Otherwise,
If the plan on the May 8th meeting does show, I think it's our idea that a couple of cul-de-sacs on Fernbrook would certainly help alleviate some of that. It's not going to alleviate the traffic, but it's going to help control the
so
traffic.
that was something else.
roundabouts, correct?
Roundabouts, not cul-de-sacs.
Roundabouts, roundabouts.
Although some might want to call it.
Yeah.
So I have a question. I was in the meeting with Hennepin County, and what I heard was maybe not acknowledging that that would be a county road indefinitely. Is there, at some point, I know it comes down to maybe miles of roads or trading, or is there any authority, or what is the process when they say, sorry, it's yours, I'm
Oh,
not?
can they vacate a
They
road
can't
without
do
our
that.
authority?
Okay, they
Not
can.
as far as I know.
Okay.
I don't know the way they can.
That would
force
be
it.
good.
It would have to be some kind of a
Just
swap.
before we say, oh, it's your problem, not ours, let's just make sure that's the fact.
That would be unfortunate, yeah.
Yeah, I've never
good
heard
point.
of that happening without consent from both sides.
And doesn't
Okay.
Maple Grove want the county to pick up Elm Creek Parkway as part of this as well?
They would.
That could be. That wouldn't be tied to this plan necessarily. I'm not
No.
familiar with it, but that very well could be.
But since they're tying the two together, it would make some sense.
Oh, for the realignment of Maple Grove Parkway, I would
Maple
sure
Grove
assume they would
Parkway. I was
expect
calling Elm
that.
Creek for some reason.
And
I
again,
mean,
that would
no,
probably be
Okay,
a
I was confused there for a second.
turn back or a swap, if you will. So the existing Fernbrook would most likely be turned back to Maple Grove. I'm just speculating here. And the new would be picked up. Wouldn't be the exact same mileage, but they'd work something out to make that happen, I would assume.
And Jason, normally when we have a turn back, the county improves the road.
That's
And you
typically how
agree
they
that now
convince
you will
the
take
turn back
this
to occur.
good road.
That's right.
So that's probably not something that's in the, again, as you all have said, this is a long-term plan for this future improvement, but there are some maintenance issues that the county still is responsible for. They have no major improvements planned on their 5-year capital improvement program for this road right now, but those get looked at, as you know, on a regular basis. It could change.
Did you want to come forward now?
Well,
Or
living on Fernbrook Lane, right.
why don't you come on up forward so we can, yeah,
Yeah.
that way we can get your voice on the recording. And just state your name and address.
I'm Kathy Powers, and I live on 11461 Fernbrook Lane. And living on Fernbrook Lane, I mean, the traffic is horrible there. It's just horrible. You can take 6 minutes to even get out on Fernbrook Lane. So we know it's horrible. And I'm concerned about the safety of people trying to get to Elm Creek Park, crossing that because they don't pay attention to the stop sign, they just go. And people, I mean, you know, why it wasn't a roundabout that was put in there, I can't answer that. But if you expect me to come to the May 8th meeting and say, yeah, I approve, no way. In the information that I haven't seen any documentation come to my home. I probably can go out on the internet and look at it, but it's a lot more effective if you would send information to my home. And some timelines would be appropriate as well. I mean, you guys want time to plan. I live on Fernbrook. I want time to plan. If I have to move, I would like to, you know, plan ahead. So I think you as council members owe it to people that live near Fernbrook or on Fernbrook to give us more information about this. And I don't consider, thank you for the information, but I don't consider it was enough for me to make any kind of decision.
And can I ask what information are you after?
Well, I would like to have, you know, just exactly what your plans are. You're saying you're gonna do a 4-lane there?
No, we're not saying we're doing anything.
Yeah.
It's
county's
not
not
us,
doing
it's the county that will do it.
Okay, where is the county?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
Where is the
Where
county?
is the county?
Yeah.
We've been
They have
asking
no
that.
plans to do anything certainly for the next 5 years.
They have shared nothing with us that they plan on doing anything in
And
the
so then
foreseeable
what do you
future.
expect the residents of Fernbrook to do with all of this commotion going on? If the county isn't gonna do anything.
I think it's just to make people aware that live near these roads where the change is going to be happening, that we're changing what the long-term outlook is. Again, we're not talking in the next decade, if not well further out than that. And so it's just more of an awareness piece that this is what the long-term plan is. So you have the opportunity to think long-term,
Well,
10,
I've
20
been
years out.
here to many of the meetings, and we've been talking about the same thing over and over and over again.
Yep.
So, but never, at one time, there was the county here with a presentation that meant nothing to anybody.
Mhm. I agree.
And so if they can't come forward and say that, you know, come to the people, come to May 8th and say, hey, we're not doing anything.
We could certainly invite them.
I mean, you know, if
but
they're not gonna do anything and we're not gonna get some funding from them, what the heck are we doing? I just don't get it.
Well,
I mean,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
and if it's gonna be a 10-year plan from your perspective, tell us it's gonna be a 10-year plan, or 5-year, or whatever. But living on that Fernbrook Lane, I would like some option to do some planning of my own.
I think it's safe to say it's going to be no sooner than 5 and likely
Longer
10
than that,
plus.
yeah.
Put it in writing.
well, the problem is,
But we can't do that
It's the
because we're not
county.
doing the work.
Yeah.
Well, you're having all these meetings.
you know, we have had too many meetings on this. I will
Yes, we
grant you
have.
that.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you
This
for
whole
observing.
thing should have never, ever, it should have been dead a year ago, in my
Well,
opinion.
it should have been nipped in the bud
Yeah.
over a decade ago.
Yeah, well, this whole conversation for the last year has been
Oh,
a
yeah.
complete waste of time.
Does seem
But
like-
the May 8th meeting, I have no idea what you expect of the residents.
And they're not going to get any more information than what was shared tonight,
No,
correct?
I'll try to do a better job of explaining what a comprehensive plan is, which is a long-term planning document, and explaining that there is no road plan, there is no plan for construction, but that it gives you the opportunity to understand that long-term, this is where the roads will be.
It
And
would
every
almost-
city does a comprehensive plan. It's not just Dayton. Every
Correct.
city does a comprehensive plan that looks out to 2030, 2040, 2050 plus,
Yeah.
and we submit that to the Met Council and others. So
But I
this is
skimmed
standard
over
in
that
government.
tonight, you know, for you, and I can spend a little more time on that on the 8th and
It would almost be
explaining how
better
a
if we
comprehensive
called it a
plan.
guide or,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Continuing, you know, people seem to all have interest in developers and people coming in to develop Dayton and all around. But what have you guys done for the residents that have lived here for 50 years?
We whacked the heck out of the tax rate.
Taxes have gone completely.
Pardon me?
Your taxes have gone way down.
No, they
The
haven't.
tax
no,
rate,
No.
your value goes up, so consequently your tax
no.
goes up with it. We can't control value.
That's not a true fact in every place, so
Sure.
don't say that.
Okay.
I mean, I'm just really wondering.
I would like to clarify that the part of the tax statement that you need to look at is just the city of Dayton. You cannot look at the county portion and the school district and everything else. So
Yeah.
if you go back even 5 years ago and look at your tax statement versus what you have today, your tax rates dropped almost half. Your tax rate only for the city of Dayton, though, not for your total tax statement. So that's what
Yes, and
Councilmember
I
Solonic is
do
looking.
understand
Yep.
that that's what you have to look at.
Yes.
You can't look at everything, every component of the tax.
Correct.
But I think there's other things beside tax what have you done besides taxes?
I would ask, and I'm really direct.
Yeah, that's
Don't
good.
try to offend anybody, but I
No,
fire it
you're
out there
not
like
gonna
it
offend me.
is. So what would you like the city to do? Because if we fix that road, if we went to the county and said, hey, this is what we want to do and we'll pay for it, it probably is going to cost the
Me?
residents in Dayton upwards of $20 million.
Yeah,
Are you good with that?
I guess if it helps all the residents within the city of Dayton and, Fernbrook, and take some of the relief off of the traffic that's on Fernbrook. But
Now, I understand why you would say that because you're on Fernbrook.
I am
But
on-
how about the other 9,500 people that are not on Fernbrook? Do
well,
they want to pay for it too?
yeah, well,
So-
you know what? All you guys have been talking about is Fernbrook Lane. So you seem to be very helpful to developers. So that's the end of my conversation.
All right, thank you. Name and address?
Okay, I'm Lee Hallquist, and I live right next door to Kathy. We've lived together, hi Scott. We've lived together or lived next door to each other for more than 40 years. To your point, my city portion of my taxes this year went up over 10%. My overall property tax bill went up 29.2%. I have made no improvements in my house. It's been 10 years. And so then I asked why, and it's just because you got a property. Like I say, I haven't got any taxable event. But as to what the city could do for us, maybe put a sidewalk down here so I could walk down the Elm Creek Park Reserve, because I use Elm Creek Park Reserve almost every day. Put a sidewalk behind those lots before the developers come in and build the snot out of everything. Take something for the people that are paying for all the new stuff. I mean, we're just not getting anything for our tax dollars, and our tax dollars are going up pretty sufficiently, and we're not, like I say, just not seeing any benefit for it.
I was shocked you weren't here at 5:30.
I didn't know I could be. I just found out about this meeting at 6 o'clock. I'm not kidding you.
Did
This
your-
one, for whatever reason, wasn't posted any place that normally would come out.
Oh, it's on your statement,
Yeah,
your property tax statement.
it's on your statement.
Uh,
I mean,
Did you look to the value? I'm assuming your value.
The
went
the
up
value
a
went
lot.
up like $21,000, something like that. And the assessment was just ridiculous. So I don't know who assesses what or how they do it, if it's just grab it out of your butt or whatever, but.
What is
they
your,
have
what is your address?
Well, you guys all look it up, mostly. People show up at my house to talk about it. 11471
Okay.
Fernbrook Lane.
Okay.
There hasn't been a property tax assessor at my house since the 1980s, the early 80s. I'm thinking people are just grabbing numbers out of their butt to see what they can do.
they basically just drive by. Yep. it's
I
all
don't even
there.
think they drive by.
No.
I know I've seen city pictures of a drone. Somebody's asking me about my new roof.
If you would have been at the meeting earlier,
I didn't know.
nearly every home that was questioned, that the resident that had a question, their value was reduced.
Yeah, well, it's getting so disgusting to even try to put up with this crap. It just is. It's not. I mean, I'm able to afford it, but if I was living on just Social Security, by the way, I'm in my 70s, retired. People that are living on Social Security and stuff, they're going to get taxed out of these houses. I mean, there is no planning for any, and there's no dream of affordable housing out here. I mean, everybody, the developers are all coming in with $450,000 quad homes. That's and HOAs and stuff that are just not what we want to see. And again, there's no concessions made to the people that already live here, that are already paying for it. I can't walk to a city park. I can't walk down Big Park Reserve without taking my life in my hands. I've spent up to 8 minutes trying to get out of my driveway. Just at the end of my driveway, watching the southbound traffic. I live on the west side of the road. The southbound traffic in the morning is horrible. In the evening, the northbound traffic, because of that little pretend roundabout down at Territorial, spaces traffic out just so that you can't get northbound either. I watched for more than 5 minutes tonight for a young lady to try to cross Fernbrook as a pedestrian with her bike at the at Elm Creek. And she's just standing there. Traffic's not slowing down. Nobody gives a rip this lady's in a crosswalk. There's laws about this stuff that, you know, I just see the city services diminishing here for everybody because of the simple volume of people. So, hope I don't sound too angry, Scott, but it's starting to really...
I'm glad you came because I was really going to light her up today.
No,
I figured you and I would be going back and forth until at least 10:30, 11 tonight.
If you want, I can step outside. No, I'm riding with Kathy, so...
No, just because of the property value of the appeal.
Like I say, I wasn't aware of it, and I know it's my job to be responsible for some of this stuff, but I have a life. I have other issues in my life that are...
Trust me, I believe you.
Yep, that's coming in. I think...
And what I see, a lot of people live in these developments, and they think everything is just great. You've got access to the roads, you've got everything. I'm taking my life in my hands. I spent most of the winter, because of the nice way the county does a good job for me, but the county plows that southbound lane. I can't see over the top of the snowdrift in my pickup truck, so I have to inch out. And someday there's going to be an accident there.
Yeah, that was a problem. I'm on Pineview, and I had the same problem looking east, but you had a lump there.
Yeah.
But,
So,
and as far as the evaluation goes, the county did let us know, and we've seen this. I've seen it. They were really, some houses went up a huge amount, and some didn't.
well, but like I say, my city portion of my taxes, the number you said to check, went up 10%.
So, yep, and so that tells me the value probably was up quite a bit.
Your value is up $57,000 over 1 year.
I haven't changed a thing in
That's
10
the county.
years.
That's the county. That's the county.
I haven't changed a thing in 10 years.
That's the county. That's the
county.
issue.
Everything I've done, I've got permits for it. And I think your permit fees are really ridiculously expensive, by the way, compared to other cities. But,
Well, there's something we could work on. 4 years ago, we did bring those down quite a bit for current residents.
Yeah, but
I have no problem looking at it again.
yeah, but I did my remodeling 10 years ago. So
Well,
then they were ridiculously
then
high.
they were ridiculous.
I think it cost me $800 to get a permit to do my bathroom.
If it's any consolation, Lee, what I gathered from this is my 7th appeals meeting, and what I gather from that is they throw what they think is, they just throw it at the wall.
Yeah,
You don't complain.
Here's a point I
People
want to
pay.
make. This is how it looks to me. I'm a 70% disabled vet, combat vet, Vietnam, thank you for service, right? So I think that I got such a big hit because I write down that first $150,000. That's my feeling, is that's why I got hit so deep.
Oh, I see. Because it wipes the first 150 off. So any increase is going to look much bigger.
No, they went up to 29%. I've had this for a couple of years, but every year since I've gotten this downgrade on my property taxes, the assessment increase has gone up, and not just barely squeaky up.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I don't know what else I can say without getting angry.
Okay. Well,
but
you can
I'd
always...
like to know why is my house assessed like it is?
That is the county.
Yeah.
So that has nothing to do with the city of Dayton at all. That is 100% Hennepin
So
County.
how do I find out what they're claiming is my house is worth?
That's on
Tax
your,
assessor's office.
that would have been in your tax statement for 23, and
No,
then
it's
you would
not.
have gotten a second one.
I would have got something that said I can appeal and all that stuff, but I
Yep,
haven't seen anything that says, I have a 1.5 car garage. I don't have a 2-car garage, and because of the city zoning rules, I couldn't expand when I wanted to, and just all kinds of things that went with that. I've been fought on.
Write down your information. I'm all happy to contact you. Just write down your phone number. That'd be great. I can give you a call.
Here's a pen.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Anyway, I appreciate your time. I don't want to sound angry, but I'm getting there.
But you are. That's
Let me call.
I understand.
You've got a valid reason, but it's not the city's issue as far as
You know, and that's
the tax side.
nothing's the city's issue that I see, you know.
That's on the tax side of it.
All right. So, anyways, thanks for coming forward.
you could think about maybe a sidewalk or something for us, so like I say, so we don't have to take our life in our hands to just even walk. There's nothing walkable where I live. The new developments all have nice walkable streets and sidewalks.
Yep.
Again,
Thank you so much.
Are you on the east side or the west side?
On the west side.
That strip of like 6.
Yeah, yeah.
The last one.
Last one on the left, as they say. Okay.
Yeah, I don't
Appreciate
think,
your
I don't
time.
think I'll say.
Thank you, Lee.
We've had many conversations.
Okay, so,
Good feedback, we'll
You
incorporate.
got some.
come on.
Next. Dave Huth, 14100 117th, so just east of Fernbrook. Looks like a group of gentlemen, you guys have all made statements, you know, I read your bios. You got into this to represent the people, right? You know, Mayor Fisher, that was one of your claims.
Yep.
From what I've seen, the people are not in favor of option 2. What leads you guys to go to option 2 as opposed to what the public survey said, which was option 1? From what I can tell, it's less displaced homes in option 1 as opposed to higher displacement. You got the public support with option 1. Lowest, by and large, they were very varied. Okay, highest support and lowest support. Again, you're going with the lowest support.
Yep.
Same with displacement. It was the lowest value and the highest value. You've chosen option 2. What leads this group to go with option 2 as opposed to those two?
So I
categories?
kind of covered most of my reasoning.
Okay.
As far as the displacement goes, that makes an assumption that the city was doing the displacing. So if you look at that X versus option 2, there may be the number of properties, I think the number of properties listed, or was listed, but the acreage wasn't.
Well, the acreage, I mean, with the X, you're running through the majority of that's ag land, and let's be honest, those guys are not afraid to sell right now.
Correct.
You go with option 2, you're going right through these people's front yards.
No, we're not.
No,
Okay,
not-
how you
there's
are
already a
now.
road there.
You're gonna go 4 lanes wide, you're gonna be into this child's
Again,
road.
we're not writing
going
it.
4 lane.
I understand, you guys, I understand, it's not in your say 100%, then why are we talking about it? You guys are our representatives.
I agree with you.
Right? We need you guys to represent the people.
Here's the dead flat out issue with that, is there's 41 homes on that street. So you 41 homes are asking all residents in Dayton to kick in $20 million to fix a problem that the city didn't create.
The city's gonna be paying for, I mean, okay, are they or are they not? No one seems to know. All I'm asking is why, whether you have say or not, if you have say, why are you not backing what the people have demonstrated?
I just said that. If we change the alignment of that road, it's on our nickel.
Okay. So you're
In other words,
assuming-
it's on
you're
your
assuming
nickel.
the county is gonna cover everything.
On that county road, they will, yes.
So everything that gets done will be covered.
The
by
way the
everybody
county
in
road
county.
sits right now, if you don't change the alignment,
Okay.
it's up to the county to maintain that road.
And the bypass would be all on us.
So option 2, the only reason option 2 is preferred is because of funding.
I don't
Correct.
think,
That's what I'm
Not
20
for
million
me.
bucks, it's a chunk of change.
I mean, that's an important
That's an
factor,
important
but to
factor,
me, the important factor is
Would you actually support funding a road, a non-4-lane road in front of your house?
You know, unless you're gonna make the lanes this wide, you're gonna have to take my front yard.
That's where that's.
At some point, and let's be real about this, at some point, the county may do that, and they're gonna come and offer you a check for the whole thing. And they're gonna
Big
take,
enough check. You wanna buy it?
Well, it really
it's
doesn't,
going to happen at some
it
time.
really doesn't matter who expands it, there's only one way to expand it. There's no room, you just make the road wider.
If you keep it right there. I don't disagree.
Right.
If it's staying there, there's no other way to
And
do it.
so
Just
my-
cut up yards.
My other hang-up with it is because, to me, that road going up from the Parkway to Zanzibar, even forgetting about the money, makes a lot more sense to me. because we've needed a north-south path here
Going from where?
forever.
Dayton Park, he's talking about extending Dayton Parkway up to Zanzibar, which is kind of what I was talking about earlier, which is the goal, I think, is move traffic off of,
That would be your X,
off of,
right?
No,
Nope.
No,
that's
this
the
John
H.
you're looking
That's
at right
Plan two,
there.
That
Oh,
right
okay.
there.
Yep.
the ultimate goal is to move, our goal, I think, as a council, is to move traffic off of Fernbrook and get it onto Dayton Parkway. Dayton Parkway connects right up to 94, so you're going to have a lot more people instead of having to jump off of 94 and get 81 and then get over to Fernbrook, or however they're doing that now. It allows them to get right off 94 and get to their new homes, the new developments, and wherever up there, right? And lets them get north-south without having to go through
I'm
Fernbrook.
confused. If the goal is to get off of Fernbrook,
Yep.
why would we be advocating to keep it right where it is and allow the county to go to 3 or 4 lanes?
So we, yep.
In the north-south travel.
We should be doing Zanzibar. In reality, we should be doing that.
Let's do that then.
Okay.
And then the county can do what they want.
You know, and then
With
the
land
north-south
use,
Go ahead.
we should be developing that area because in the back of our mind, I believe someday there will be a river crossing. And that is the most likely area that is going to get.
Where are we thinking
So
that
why
would
is
be?
Zanzibar going to be 20 or 30 years out?
Follow that
Why
line
is-
straight
why
up,
is-
from
why
straight
is
up
that one
Zanzibar.
required?
Just because you have to develop, so
This
so
line right here.
So there's 2 ways to build roads. Either the city taxes everyone we build them, or as the developers come through, we have the developers build the roads. The taxpayers aren't paying upfront to pay for to get those roads built. So the goal is to have the development start there, move its way up, and then have the road built as the development goes that way.
So this is not option 2 that I saw.
This is option 2 right here.
This is option
This is
two.
option 2.
Yeah, this is option
This is
two.
keeping Fernbrook and bringing Maple Grove Parkway straight up north-south. Yep.
Okay, that's not the.
That's Fernbrook. That's
Dayton
highlighted
Parkway,
right
sorry, what
there.
did I say?
Here's Fernbrook.
Yep.
If we build this little deal and run it this way, all of this is on your nickel.
Right.
Either way, it's all on our nickel, right? Whether I pay county taxes or city taxes.
Yeah, but you'll end up paying for it twice, because you'll pay for the county their money anyways, they're not gonna do anything with.
Twice now.
Well, no, because the city is not, it's a county road, so your county taxes should be paying to maintain the county road. If you're paying the county the money, and then the city taxes you more to do it, you're end up paying twice for the same service you should have paid
We
once
had
for.
this conversation about my taxes, right?
Yeah, I understand.
And don't raise mine after you leave.
Yours didn't go
So-
up, how come mine did?
Yeah, so keep in mind that, to Scott's point, you know, if we look and have, and this may sound a little crass, but if we have a small group of people decide to spend $20 million of the whole city's, you know, taxes, this might make sense, or it might make sense to bump up Fernbrook, but it's expensive, it's gonna be expensive.
It's gonna be expensive either way, right?
I think when we do the acts, we are burying a lot more land in the roads. This option here is a lot less land. If you add up the acreage for the acts, for option 1, which is the X, or option 3, which is the bypass, this is by far the least land consuming of the options.
So what's gonna happen with land otherwise?
Not residential.
Well, in the end, it's still money that has to be sunk into pavement and not put a house on.
So what happens when the county
Can
comes in?
can you,
Sorry, yeah, I'll come.
yeah. Otherwise, we're kind of a free-for-all here.
Now, before you guys leave, I want you to be satisfied. Not that you're hearing what you want to hear, but you understand the
Well, I
whole
want
plan.
clarity on what you guys are pushing for. So when you do get time to have a say,
Yep.
you're representing, you know, at least we know what you're representing.
Correct.
Okay?
Yeah, I agree.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so Charles Mussman, 11880 Fernbrook. So what, the thing that I'm not clear on here is, so between this option and option 3, right? If this is essentially the do-nothing plan with Fernbrook, right? Let the
Correct.
county
Correct.
decide whenever it gets painful enough or someone dies. I have 2 small boys that could wander out there, so, you know, it could be them.
But you just made the assumption that any other plan's gonna fix that, and it's not.
It's not.
At some point, if you put a cul-de-sac at the end of Fernbrook, which is what's been stated in these plans, that would fix that. Now, we're talking 20 years down the road, but
We're
still.
talking probably 40 years.
Roundabout or
Sure.
cul-de-sac?
Yeah.
Roundabout.
It says cul-de-sac.
It's called. it would
Option
eventually
three,
be cul-de-sac.
Option three had a cul-de-sac.
3 and 1.
3 and
both
1
have
have a
cul-de-sac.
The current plan has a cul-de-sac at the end of Fernbrook because it would be turned back to a city road
Yes.
after 113th.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So if you have, let's say, option 3 as the plan, and then at some point someone gets hit and this county decides that they need to make the change, so they will not adopt that, and that at that point option 3 is still at our dollar or theirs. Right. So you're talking eventualities, right?
Yeah.
This comprehensive
Yes.
plan, but you don't make a plan without intent of action.
Sure.
Right. So if the intent here is we're going to let the county take care of it whenever the county gets around to doing it 20, 30, 40 years, whatever the heck it is, they're going to go off of whatever plan that you have here, correct?
They may just do whatever they want.
They may just do whatever
Well,
they
keep
want.
in mind
But
that-
if you have a recommendation for a plan that, that is option 3, let's just say,
Yep.
which also had a high public opinion,
Yep.
in comparison to this, so the county is not going to pay for that road at that point? That's
Option, so I think the problem with all of this is even with option 3, we will not reduce traffic on Fernbrook until that top leg is done, and that's 40 years away. Or that's 30 years away. We will not
Sure.
complete that. So the county, to me, there's no way the county is gonna not have to do something with this road in the next 5 to 10 years.
Right.
And so we can make all kinds of plans to be done in, say, the 2050 timeframe, but they're gonna have to act far earlier.
Right.
So it doesn't matter what the plan is.
So if we have I'm trying to say, suggestive plan,
Sure.
thank you,
Yeah.
of, say, again, option 3, they're going to just throw that out. They're not going to look at any of the city plans that you guys have approved, that we've agreed to.
The problem with
They-
option 3 is it would require the city to do that, and they wouldn't come to us and say, hey, we see you don't want to redo Fernbrook, we're going to give you this money to make this nice new road around Fernbrook. They're not going to do that. So they're just going to sit there and say, oh, well, we'll just wait for the city to get around to doing their part, and eventually we'll do ours, and we don't have to worry about it because the city's going to take care of it, which I think is part of the problem, as David brought up earlier, which is that the current plan doesn't show the county actually has to do anything about it because it looks like we're going to bypass all the county roads. If I didn't misrepresent what you were saying earlier.
And
So
although I
option
think-
3 was picked and we deviate from what the current county road is, it goes on the city's dollars.
The county's never going to
It's
give
not
it.
the county's responsibility any longer.
We can't give them to put money into fixing the road when it is their responsibility, let alone if we take the responsibility away from them, they're never just going to give us the money.
But I think even if we did go that route, they would still have to act on Fernbrook.
They would.
Because,
They're going to have to do something, you're right.
again, once Maple Grove Parkway comes through and connects, once we pave Zanzibar, we're going to see a lot of traffic on Fernbrook. We're going to see that increase over the next 5+ years.
Right.
And none of these plans is going to fix that.
If this is purely funding driven, why was
It
the
isn't.
public survey done at all?
So, again, my opinion on this survey was, A, it was very haphazard. We didn't know that it was going to be done. The council didn't. We didn't have access to the questions. A lot of the people I talked to afterwards had no idea that the earliest this would benefit traffic was going to be 20+ years out. They did not know that. All they knew was, here's these 3 options, and here's what's
Pick
going to
one.
happen with traffic at the end. They didn't know when the end was.
Who conducted that survey? I mean, who was the backbone behind that
I
survey?
think that was
Yes, sir.
SRF and a previous administrator. It was done before. It was done,
The old previous administration.
well.
Was that a citywide one? 'Cause that's not.
No, it was here.
Yeah, okay, so the other thing I would say is, I wasn't on council the last time they had the thing with the dots on the board. I was in the audience with all of y'all.
Yep.
And I would say 95% of people that showed up and took part in that survey live on Fernbrook.
Yeah.
So you surveyed the people that are most greatly affected to it. So when this says X percent had an approval rating of 3.8, I think was the number, if I remember in the packet correctly, that's the people that live on that road. If you survey all of Dayton, that number may be totally different. Now, I'm not saying that the opinions people that live on that road aren't valid, and what all y'all are saying isn't important. So please don't take what I'm saying, that I think that what you're saying I'm taking with a grain of salt. What I'm trying to say is when we talk
I
about,
understand the data
Yeah.
set. The
It's
data
it's
set's
skewed towards
not
people that are gonna want that.
true, unbiased data set. I
There you go.
understand that.
Thank you.
I get that. It's looking at what was laid out. It doesn't appear you guys are acting in the interest of the public. Yeah, I understand. The public is not truly the public.
As it was presented, I would agree with you 100%. And I think that was part of Mayor's concern with the way that it was laid out in that packet, was it seems very slighted, when in reality it's not
I don't know if
that
you were
way.
at that meeting, but I made it very clear I was totally unhappy with what just happened. Because to me, it was a very skewed, the information being presented wasn't very clear.
And depending if you were at the first meeting or the second meeting, you heard totally different things, like I brought up earlier. So again, it was not well held.
So I'm curious on the time frame. Really, your 20, 30 years keeps being brought up. Right. So 5 years, something has to be done. Something likely won't be done for 20 to 30. Yet in your 2030 zoning plan, you have everything on the west side of Fernbrook Lane filled in with low-density housing. 2040, you have most of the stuff on the east side, medium-density, high-density housing. You guys always see the same thing, don't you?
You'll see, you'll see the land use, but those areas are split into up to 2050. So right where Fernbrook has the sharp left, the 90-degree there, that area isn't slated for development for till I believe 2050.
2050. To provide some clarification, all of the traffic, basically, I'm going to use 121st as kind of an imaginary line. Everything north of 121st is considered post 2050 on Fernbrook. So that means no development can happen in that area with water and sewer until 2050 or post 2050 land.
And that's the black line.
And that is the black line.
Horizontal.
That's kind of, the
Horizontal.
the horizontal dash white and black line up there. Everything to the east of Fernbrook that is south of 121st is slated for 2040. So that means that no development that has water and sewer is to be developed until 2040. But you are correct with saying the zoning, or the land use of that, is guided for medium or at least it says medium density, from what I can tell here on the map. But it's in 2040 though. That's the answer is 2040. I want to clarify the numbers and the years and everything else so everyone has the information. The years, when we say a 2040 comp plan, we're not anticipating anything to be done, finalized, like this plan or anything, until 2040. So we don't see that finalizing and the whole roadmap been until 2040. That's the answer. The 5 and 10 year thing is really up to the county, because that's the portion that we're talking about with Fernbrook. And so currently on the county's plan, they don't have it in their 5-year CIP, which means they don't have any plan in the next 5 years to do anything to Fernbrook. They have a quote-unquote proposed 10-year plan that nothing on Fernbrook is there yet. However, I would presume with this change to our comp plan, they will have to put something or look at something in that 5 to 10 year window. Only because on our current comp plan that we have adopted, we are giving them 2 new roads in the middle of the city. Those 2 crosswise X patterns roads. We were supposed to basically, I don't know what the term is, but basically turn them back or turn them to the county once they are connected, which would have been in 2040. And then we would have been given Fernbrook with your cul-de-sac at it that you mentioned.
But so is there not currently, I believe my wife used the term moratorium on development?
Just for
because we haven't figured out what the alignment of these roads
for 6 months. That is correct. It ends
right. So that's the whole point of this, is to resolve so they can continue moving north from where they are currently. So at some point here in 2030, 2035, if there isn't a comprehensive plan or changes to how this road is made, there will be no option to do any of that because those will all be filled in with houses, right?
The goal of the moratorium was so we could figure out where the roads were going to be.
Yep.
So we didn't have somebody build something where we're going to put a road in the long run.
Right.
And so that should be done, knock on wood, by the end of the summer. I'm going to use the long term, but by the end of the summer.
Anything south of this line here, right, you are no longer able to make any of the other options. So if you move forward in doing all of that development, it doesn't matter because option 1 and option 3 are completely off the table because now you've filled all those in with houses.
Correct.
So no matter what, your decision here ways on which development can we move forward and completely eliminates any possibility of any other option besides this, which would likely result in most of our houses.
I think regardless of what option we pick, it's gonna lock in that option. And that was part of the concern, and that was why, I think this should have been, so this thing has come up over the last 15 years, and it's like, what's this X doing here? It was a constant, but nobody ever did anything about it. Nobody liked it, but yet nobody ever did anything about it. And now we're doing something about it. The X, the planning commission looked at it, and I don't know if they were unanimous, but there were at least 3 votes to get rid of the X. So this thing has come up a number of times. It's just nobody's ever acted on it, and finally we now have developments looking at that area, and we need an answer.
Right.
And so it doesn't matter what the answer is, but it will kind of lock it in.
I think what he's saying though is if we choose this, we're locking it in your opinion, that he's gonna lose these people are gonna lose their front yards because the county's gonna, so we.
Homes. We'll lose our homes.
Sure, some of you.
They're gonna get bought out.
Most
probably, yeah. So,
And like I said,
lose your home may be the wrong way to say, you'll be bought out, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be purchased, the county's gonna.
Yep.
But
So,
you gotta understand,
I don't miss
I
what
don't
you're
want
saying.
to sell
I
my
understand
house.
that.
Yep.
But
I
like where I live.
I personally
get it,
don't
I
think
understand it.
Yeah, I think they're gonna have a Fernbrook problem regardless of which plan we select.
Yep.
So,
I will tell you that unless development comes forward, there will be nothing pushed forward by the city, at least at this point. So let's give an example of, in the next 5 years, we have no development north of 117th Avenue. If no development comes in at all. Could happen, could not happen, nobody knows. But if nothing comes in, that means when we revisit the 2050 comp plan, we will have time to review this again. If development comes in between now and I would say 2028, in the next 5 years, then we would have some of this locked in, not all of it though, because only a portion of it, again, I'll use 121st as the imaginary line, is 2020 land, and then everything above that is 2030, 2040, 2050. So it won't be unlocked or basically removed from the staging plan until that point. So some of it will be locked in if development comes in. If development does come in, this roadway could have a different conversation in 5 years.
Right. So the takeaway point here for me really is that at some point the county is coming for my property and there's nothing I can do about it. Correct? I'll be bought out. There's nothing I can do.
If they make
there's
that
nothing any of you can or will do.
I don't know how
to
the
change
county
that.
does that.
Is that an incorrect statement?
If they're going to upgrade that road to a 3 or 4 lane road, and
Yeah.
we're not saying we're going to.
Well, you don't have any
If the
control.
county's
I
going
understand.
to, they're gonna purchase your property, yes.
Yeah.
They could,
And there's absolutely
Unfortunately,
nothing
that's the reality.
anyone in this room can do about that.
They could do that, as I think Dennis was trying to allude to, even if we select other plans, they may end up doing that anyways, because it may take us so long to get those other plans in place that they will have upgraded Fernbrook by then anyways. So regardless of the choice we make, there's still a possibility that would happen. It's much higher with this one, please don't get me wrong, but there's still a possibility either way that would be the end result, regardless of which choice was.
it would not surprise me if their 5-year plan gets a nudge when Maple Grove Parkway goes through. Because my guess is that's gonna dump a lot more traffic on Fernbrook.
Which the city of Maple Grove, I think, just approved last meeting. Yeah. So,
That's gonna provide a path, right, for everybody that comes down Fernbrook, right to Maple Grove.
Yep.
There's
I've seen the plan for it.
Yeah, so I hear what you're saying. It's just when I look at things in total, when I look at everything, this is what makes sense to me. For land use, for dollars, for efficiency in north-south pathways, everything about it. And like I said, I think that when people were presented with this information at the open house, they were not presented with all of the information. And I know that sounds like a cop-out, but I know that the few people that I talked to afterwards were absolutely under the impression that this was like a 5-year deal. They were
I think
under
it was
the
made
impression.
relatively clear that this was, at least in the meeting that I was in, and as you say, they're both different. There was several statements made by you that this was a long way out. We were talking 15, 20, 30 years. This was not a immediate something, but having a plan in place that might save our homes sounded like a better idea than not.
And yet, at those same meetings, we saw people say, so when are you gonna buy my house? Tomorrow? I'll
Yeah.
sell it to you right now. So like, there's
Yep,
still that
that
like
did
dichotomy
happen.
of, even though it gets said, people sometimes hear what they want to hear. And again, I don't disagree, because I was at both of them, and, yeah.
I agree completely. Yeah. Okay. I don't have anything else.
Thank you for coming in.
Anybody else? Name and address?
Darren Senescal, 11980 Fernbrook. Just a couple things. You mentioned all of the information. I think it should be well known when you present this plan on May 8th. Still have, how many homes and acquisitions are going to be affected? That has still never been answered.
I think it's
How many homes?
41. I think it's 40.
For Plan 2? What about Plan 1 and Plan 3?
They got that listed here.
Did you present that tonight,
Okay.
correct, Kendra?
I did, and
Got
it's the old data. Again, until we design the road, we don't know for certain, but the
You
previous
must have
data
some sort
did
of
give
idea
the
of
numbers.
how
That
many
is in
numbers.
the
So
report.
that would be helpful to.
41 and 20.
Okay. The other one is, you talk about Zanzibar and wiggling through. I still don't have a clear cut why it wouldn't be a county road if you did Plan 3. You're assuming the county won't take over that road if you make it go behind Fernbrook.
No, they eventually will. They eventually would, that would be the plan.
They
So
would
that
take
would
it
be
over-
off of, that would be off of the city's budget.
They would take it over after we built it.
Yeah, that's after we build it.
They wouldn't
Okay.
just build it. We'd build it, and then they'd say, oh, we'll take that nice road from you. Thank you
And
very
you know
much.
that for a fact. We had a conversation with them. You know that. All right.
Yes, that is correct.
And
So
that's-
we build the road, then they'll take it over.
Yeah, that's correct.
Or-
They rarely, do they ever build roads?
Not years.
Nope.
Right. What happens is the local municipality builds the road, for example, the parkways, Maple Grove, Dayton, and eventually they'll get enough traffic to where the county will come in and take ownership.
Got it.
It's not pretty. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, so you have what you need from us?
Yes, I have
She had
good
what she
information,
needs.
some things you'd like to see, talking more about the Zanzibar components. And just to be clear for the council and anyone who's listening, the presentation on the 8th is intended to be a presentation. We will take public written comments, but it's not a public hearing on the 8th. It's not a survey. It's presenting the information. And then we will have a public hearing on June 1st. So it'll be a little different than the last one, it sounds like, but this is really just an opportunity to present information. And we will have comment cards for people to fill out
Might
that we'll
want to make
share.
it clear that there will be a public hearing in June.
Yes, yep, and we will share that schedule of the June 1st public hearing, yes. And as I said, we've been working with staff about noticing that, so.
Correct.
So we'll see on the 8th, I think.
All right.
Thank you for the
Thank
feedback,
you.
appreciate it.
Okay. We are striking E.
Yeah, we just need a motion and a second to table it, just so we can move to the next.
Oh, G?
No, sorry.
E.
Sorry.
Oh, okay.
D is good. We have
All
a
right.
direction. Thank you.
I will entertain a motion to table it.
I'll motion the table.
Second.
And I believe there's no discussion on table.
Nope.
So, all right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no.
That'll be on
Motion
April 25th.
carries.
That'll be the next meeting.
Okay. Item F, Resolution 14, 2023, sale of TIF 19 bonds. Does anybody need a break? Okay.
I'm good.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. We have Jason Arsvold from Ellers here to present about the sale of our TIF 19 bonds. Again, this was set up, in fact, last year when we approved the West French Lake Road and the Dayton Parkway intersection improvements.
Yeah,
We had
that's what I was
notified that
thinking.
those would both be paid for by a TIF bond. So I'll hand it over to Jason. Thank you so much.
So if we can just get order in the room.
Hang on.
Thank you.
Okay.
All set?
Yes.
Yeah, go
All
ahead.
right. Well, good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Jason Arzold with Ellers. As Zach mentioned, just here to talk about the 2023 A TIF bonds. Just the real brief, presentation here, I just want to talk a little bit about the history, back up a little bit about why we're here talking about this. I know not all of you were here when we had these conversations. Talk about the proposed bond issue, specifically the pre-sale report that's in your packet, and then what will happen in terms of next steps. So just to back up a little bit, when we talked over a year ago about how to pay for all the improvements contemplated around French Lake Road and around County Road 81 and Dayton Parkway, there was a pretty detailed plan put in place about how to do that, and it relied on a couple of different pieces. The biggest piece of which was to rely on the private development around that area to build portions of the roadway through there, through and adjacent to their development areas. That was around $11.4 million. Part of that was funded with Graco TIF. There's about $2.3 million in present value TIF that was, not going to be paid up front by the city, but paid over time from the increment that project generates. Then there was a city portion that was planned to be paid for, the combination of TIF bonds and pavement management funds. And at the time, we were looking at about $4.85 million for the French Lake Road piece in bonds and about $1.5 million in pavement management funds. When we had this conversation, I think the goal that you all reflected back to us was, that's great, but let's try to limit the use of the pavement management funds to the extent possible. So we, proceeded with that direction. And then for County Road 81 and Dayton Parkway, the funding here was going to be paid primarily with a transportation infrastructure grant in the amount of $1 million. And then we thought we'd need about $750,000. That would be an additional amount that would be used from the bond to help pay for that project. And that was the idea there. The project started, you bid this project and actually started construction on it. So that's happening. The city is paying for those costs up front. The intent is that we're going to use these bond proceeds to reimburse what the city's already expended and then pay any remaining construction costs out of the bond proceeds. So that's the intent with the financing here. This is a summary, just kind of current that we're looking at, and then as we had talked about back in 2022 when we had estimates. So we had about $7.2 million in costs that we're trying to fund today. We had thought maybe that would be about $8.1 million, but with the bids and everything else, my understanding 7.2 is the current number. We were able then to reduce the pavement management fund contribution and keep that lower than we had anticipated. The bond amount is roughly the same. Instead of $5.6 million in proceeds, we're looking at about 5.7 in proceeds, and then the grant obviously stayed the same as well. So this is kind of how we propose the cost to come in and be paid for with the bond. That's what that looks like. And then I'll jump into the bond itself. So this is a very similar, sorry, the screen is in the way. Similar to what you just saw in terms of what the sources and uses are. On the top, we have our bond issue. It's a little bigger than the number that you saw, the 5.6 million, and the reason for that is because we've got to pay for cost of issuance and capitalized interest, which is going to be interest payments on the bonds that we're going to need until we get to tax increment revenue. And so those numbers are on the bottom. The cost of issuance there, the $74,000, $73,000, and then the capitalized interest fund is $356,000. All the numbers below that are those same project funding numbers that we're using to actually pay for project costs out of the bond issue. So those are all the ones that you saw on the previous slide as well. So in this case, we've got a total par amount, we call it. The total size of the bond issue is $6,215,000. We've got the grant funds and we've got the pavement management fund. Together, all are enough to pay for the costs of the construction of this whole project that's out there. So that's the intent with the bonds. That's what's proposed in the pre-sale report that you have. We had a lot of conversation around, trying to be really careful about what we were projecting for TIF revenue. These bonds, just to kind of back up a little bit, we intend to issue, and they're intended to be supported wholly by the tax increment financing that's going to come out of TIF District number 19, which the main development within that district is the Cubes project, right? So we've got about 1 million square feet of new industrial space, and I've had no fewer than 4 conversations with the county to try to be very clear about what the likely valuation of that building will be. And according to them, $100 per square foot valuation is a very conservative, well, not very, but it's a conservative assumption about where the value is likely to be on that building. So that's what we've used in an assumption to build our estimates of tax increment, right? So we've used a conservative valuation. There are other properties in this district to the north and to the south near the intersection at 81 and north of the Cubes property. We just assume that those stay flat. We have assumed no growth in the value there. I can tell you they're going to probably increase, but we haven't built that into the assumptions. And then we're assuming that the full value of the Cubes project doesn't happen until 2025, which would be for taxes payable in 2026. Now, in all likelihood, that building's going to be done at the end of this year, but the way the assessments come into play, they sometimes lag behind that. So we're trying to hedge against that as well. So we've got projections for tax increment that I think are reasonable and conservative, so that we're not, over issuing and putting ourselves at risk of not being able to pay the bonds with that increment. And then on top of that, what we've shown here in this bond issue is that those conservative revenues are estimated to be 120% of what we actually need to pay the bonds. So that's another layer built in here of protection, that we've got more revenue, even though it's conservative, than we need to actually pay debt service on those bonds. So that's, again, a cushion that's there. If we don't need it, it's available to use for other purposes within the city, within certain limitations, but it's there as a cushion in the event that revenues don't come in as we projected. We also have the ability, and will likely pledge increment from other districts in the area. So there are 2 districts for the 2 recent Graco projects that have been created recently, one of which will be just certified this year. There is a district in place for the Liberty project that only had the 1 building built in it, just north of here, north of Graco, that has extra revenues that, in the event that we need to, we can pull from that. So we're doing everything we can here to make sure that we're protecting against the need to use other sources to pay the bonds. So it's our recognition that issuing debt is a risk. You are pledging, that if these revenues aren't sufficient, that you will pay from some other source. That's just how these bonds are issued. But we've set it up in a way that we think is going to protect against needing to do that. So just to reiterate here, this summary is in your table in your pre-sale report as well. But kind of the total revenues column, that's our projected tax increment revenue. So that's where you can see it building over time, and it gets to full value in 2027. That's really from taxes payable in 2026. So that's when the full value comes on. You can see it's flat. We're assuming no inflation in that value, right? So we started at the $100, and we're not adding any new value to that, again, to be conservative. And then the debt service column there on the right, that's the projected debt service. So we've sized the bonds. We've got current market rates in the runs right now to come up with that debt service number, and we've added 0.5% as a cushion to get us from today until the time we actually sell the bonds. So we've got some protection built in there as well when we get to that. Because when we actually sell, there's going to be an actual rate that we pay that's going to be different than what I'm showing you here, but we've got cushion built in to protect against that. So then the box that's circled in red there, that's the coverage. That's what I talked about. That's the at least 120% of the revenue to pay the debt service. And in fact, we get up to about 121% in these current projections. So that's how this is set up, all designed to make sure that we're not having to pull from other sources to pay the bonds. Questions about that before I keep moving through? Okay.
So this type of bond, the city does actually have an obligation to pay these?
That's correct. These are general obligation tax increment financing bonds. So general obligation just means that you're agreeing to pledge your full faith and credit as a city to payment of the bonds. Tax increment because you're intending to use tax increment to pay the bonds. And you can issue those bonds and use, as long as you use 20% of tax increment to pay them, and you could use any other source to pay those bonds and legally issue them. We're planning to pay 100% of the debt service with the tax increment from the district. That's the intent here. And that's the way it's set up. And that's what the projections show that we'll be able to do. There is still a risk, and I'll talk about that a little bit. So in the pre-sale report, it talks a little bit about the details about the bond issue, the authority. So you can't just issue debt for any reason. You have to have either a referendum that allows you to do that, a vote, or there has to be an exception or a carve-out in statute that lets you do that without a referendum. In this case, we're using the tax increment financing statute, and that allows us to issue general obligation bonds, and then the state's general bonding statutes. They're being issued for a term of 9 years and 8 months. That's being done to match the term of the tax increment district. Tax increment district is 9 years long. It will start in 2024, roughly 8 months from now. And that's why 9 years, 8 months, to match the term of the district. When you issue these bonds, you can't just simply repay them at any time. That's just the way the market works for bonds. So they have what's called a call date in there. And in this case, we've got a 7-year call. So if we get to that year 7 and we have enough money in the TIF fund, we could actually prepay the bonds and then be done with the bond issue. But that's pushing that about as early as we think we can without having to start to pay for it in the rate. So that's why that's set at 7 years.
TIF capture stops at that point too, right?
It stops at 9 years.
Oh, so regardless of if we pay it at 7 years, it still continues?
Well, there are some, if we repay the bonds, well, there's some nuance to that question. The district can run for 9 years, as long as there's an obligation that's outstanding that we need to pay. So that could be the bonds, and if they get paid early and there's no other obligation, we would actually we'd have to shut the district down. If what we will also do, we already put this in place, an interfund loan resolution, which we can, if we have extra increment, the intent would be to also repay the pavement management fund with tax increment, and we would have that obligation outstanding to be able to do that. So but that's only if we have enough revenue to do it. So we would preserve that opportunity, and if we did that, then the district might stay open for the 9 years, even if we were able to call it at 7.
Okay.
So it just really depends, but yeah, 7 year, we don't have to prepay at 7 years, but we can. The bonds run 9 years, so does the district.
And if things play out as planned, you've got that extra 20-21% carryover from year to year. You could theoretically keep that and use that to pay those bonds off early.
Correct, that's exactly right. Yep, if we accumulate that every year into the fund and we get to 7 years and they're callable and we have enough in there, we could do that with the tax increment that's in the fund. Yeah, and that would be the best, possible outcome, that we get that done early, everything back on the tax rolls. That would be great, but we don't want to, it's there in case we run into some unforeseen issues with respect to valuations, economy crash, anything can happen, right? I mean, it's 9 years, so yes, you're right. If when all when is projected, we'll have all that extra to use for that purpose. That's right.
The benefit would be to get the taxes back on, use those taxes back on the tax roll to lower the tax rate down. That would be the incentive to do a 7-year call.
I mean, that was the end goal of all of this discussion, right? Was to build these roads so that you have development that helps you with your tax base.
To me, I hear fungible, so I'm hearing we can move that money around somewhat.
Yes. Yep.
So I don't.
Yeah, the 7-year call is only in there because if we have the ability to, great. If not, then we have the ability to. We do not have to.
Right. I guess I was thinking of.
It would matter whether the
TIF
amount of
term
taxes
itself
offset the difference.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Correct.
If there's more return on the taxes, not necessarily return, but
especially
that's
because
a bigger number.
we're assuming no inflation in what's shown here, and they told us tonight there was a 31% increase in industrial. So this past year in tax value. So
Well, I will say that's built into the $100 though. I mean, Hennepin County is.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
I conservatively built in. I mean, values for years were around $60 a foot, and we've seen, you here and throughout the county have seen transactions happen well in excess of $100 a square foot. Sales of industrial property. So the county is behind on its industrial valuations, and it's intentionally raising them to get caught up to where the market is.
Okay.
And so those are the conversations that I've had with them to understand, well, where is this likely to go by the time it actually gets assessed, and that's where that $100 number comes from. So it builds in a little bit of that, because when we started this discussion, we were down at around $60, and they said, oh, it's way too low, and then we bumped it up to $80 a foot, and now they're saying no, it's going to be more like $100, and maybe more. Again,
so you've already built some of that into
some of that, yes, because we have to look out at what's going to happen. Those increases already happened, right? Mm-hmm. They happened to industrial property already. We have to now, where are we going? And when we get into 2024 and have increment coming in, what are those going to be? And so that's what this is trying to do, is understand that, and then stay flat from there, so that we're not assuming any more, valuation growth, which may well occur. I mean, we could end up at the end of this district at, $200 a foot for industrial. I don't know. Who knows? Nobody would have thought we'd be where we are a couple of years ago, but here we are with those values. So, so that's the call. This will be rated. Rating agency will rate the bonds. Standard & Poor's is the entity that we've worked with here for Dayton. Your current rating is AA. So on the scale of ratings, there's only 2 notches more until you get to AAA. So You've got a good credit rating, which helps, generate interest in purchasing the bonds and helps with your interest rate and keeping that as low as it can be, which kind of gets to how we're going to sell the bonds. So I know many of you are familiar with this, but this will be a competitive offering, we call it. So what we're essentially, just like you would do if you were to bid a road project, we're putting your debt out for sale to the lowest bidder, essentially. And so we'll conduct that sale. We'll take in those bids. We'll do the math about which one of those is most advantageous based on the true interest cost of the bonds, and then we'll recommend awarding it to that entity when the sale day happens. I did put in here about risk factors, and we touched on this a little bit, but the big one here is that increment doesn't materialize as we projected, and then we have to pay the bonds from some other source. That is the biggest risk. I've talked about what we've done to mitigate that, but again, if there are anything else that happens that affects value, taxes, anything, then we just need to be aware that there are things that I've talked about, the ones that we know about. There are things that could happen that we maybe can't foresee or don't know about. Just be aware that there is some level of risk here by doing this. But again, this was either way a good way to finance these improvements, and you're getting them built. And you did get, I think, pretty good bids relative to the estimates that were out there at the beginning. So
this is on the Cubes building, correct? And do we know what's going in the Cubes building? No.
That doesn't affect the value.
Well, could. I mean, what happens to the inside and the build out of that building? It's lease up. All of that affects valuation, which is another reason why we've delayed the full assessed valuation out a few years, because sometimes they'll value it as a shell, and that might not be full value. That $100 might need to see it occupied, too. And so it's why we've kind of pushed out the growth in the value to the full amount, because we want to allow time for that lease up to happen. And that's a huge building. I mean, somebody could come tomorrow and take the whole thing. I think that's what they hoped when they built this, but we're in a different place today than we were even a year ago with respect to the industrial market. So again, I think just trying to be conservative about building. There will always be some value there because of the shell. It just may not be all the way to what we had initially thought, or what its potential might be. We spent a lot of time too. I will say the other risk factor is that, increment is not, value is one factor, but the tax rate is another one. And if, the increment gets calculated on the lesser of what we put in place at the time the district is created, which is pay 2023, or certified, which is pay 2023, or the current value, whichever is less. And so if the rate goes down and we have the same value, our increment is going to be less. And so we looked at sensitivity around that as well, which is kind of how we arrived also at where we're at, because we looked at 115% coverage, 110% coverage, and we looked at what might happen if the tax rate were to continue declining over that full 9 years, and tried to factor that in as well. So just know that we tried to think of everything we can, but again, there are things that can happen that are outside of our control. So next steps tonight. This is a pre-sale report. It just outlines what the proposal is for the bond sale. Assuming you all approve that, then that will be our direction to start the process of going through setting up the sale. So we'll work with staff to do that. That's going to involve putting together an offering document, which we call a preliminary official statement, working with the rating agency to do that discussion with them and get the actual rating back. We'll conduct the sale, take bids on May 23rd, and then we come back that same evening. The day we take bids, we'd come back to the council meeting that evening to recommend the award to that lowest cost bidder. And then it takes about 3 weeks. So we've got built in there right now, June 15th is when the closing would happen, which is really when you receive the bond proceeds. And then, of course, we've got capitalized interest built in, so there aren't really any bond payments anticipated from the actual increment until partially next year, but mostly in 2025. So that's it. I'll stop there, but certainly if there's any questions or more details you want to go through here, I'm happy to do that.
For this type of bonds, where have interest rates been, and where have they been going lately?
We've got a number right in there. I don't have the document up in front of me, Zach. I don't know if you have it. That'd be the second page, the true interest cost number. And we've got 50. It's probably going to be.
Is it the 3.98?
Yeah. Is it the TI true interest cost?
The 3.77.
Yeah, okay.
Zero.
Yeah, I was going to say where we've been. I was going to say about 3.5, but the 3.77 includes that 0.5% cushion. So I think when we look at the market, that means we're more like 3.27 is what we think maybe the market today. is, and so and it's moving every single day. I mean, right now we are in a crazy time with ups and downs where rates have been. But so the thought is by putting 3.77, all the numbers are run off that. As long as we achieve that or less, we're going to be better off than what it's good or better off than what I've shown you here today.
Any other questions? All right, I think we need a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve it.
And a second.
Second.
Any more discussion on this? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, you got,
5 minutes.
yeah, you got this.
Item
I
G.
figured that one just to find my presentation.
Last item of the evening, thank you, Mayor and
Can I
members
knock
of
that
City
out?
Council. We have Jason Quisberg here to present the award of Zanzibar Lane project. And
Oh, no, I don't.
we will work through the technical difficulties at this point.
Might as well start in the way we started.
Can I just add something here? I was going to mention at the start of the meeting, but so we've seen our planning costs go up a lot because of how we're doing planning.
Yep.
And I think at some point, we had talked a little bit about this. I think we should look at our fee structure again quickly. I mean, quickly in the next couple of months, because I think right now we're accumulating costs much more rapidly than the plan had built in.
Yes, so currently our rates for planning items, building permits and such, are based on an internal staff level of planning. Right now, currently we are using a consultant to do that work. So that is roughly double, if not triple, the price of a normal planning unit to have that happen. So we are likely losing money on the permits that we're issuing today. But we will be looking at that for sure in the next few months, depending on what we do with the staffing levels. So if we can't find a city planner, which we had none at the last process, if we can't find a city planner or somebody to do that work, we are going to have to use consultants, and we will update the council on rates.
My concern wasn't just that, but I think our processes, our applications are probably going to come down quite a bit over the next
Number of applications you're talking?
Yep. And so that's going to have another impact. So it just seemed, I don't remember what the mechanism that they had put in place to come up with these fees, but it just seems like something we should look at again.
Okay.
So,
Yep, we can do that.
all right. Sorry.
Take it away, Jason.
Give me Mayor and Council. We've looked at this item a number of times, so I'll be very brief just on the background. We're looking at Zanzibar Avenue between 125th and South Diamond Lake Road. Currently a gravel road, looking to do some stabilization, some road structure improvements, and then paving the surface of that roadway. Preparation of plans were authorized back by council back in November of 2022. Those plans were prepared and approved in February 2023. At that time, council gave authorization to advertise for contractor bids to construct the improvements as outlined. Those bids were opened on March 28th. There was 10 bids received in total. So here's a tabulation. I certainly will not go through all of these, but the low was Wright and Company at just over $1 million. And just for comparison, I think it's probably under that bar, but our estimate on the project was about 1.3 million, 1.33, which we were almost high bid on this one. They came in lower than anticipated. The main reason being is we did not expect to see a decrease in the pavement costs that was realized, which was great news. That's one of the main components of this project. The mix did come down from last year, yeah. So just a summary of the project costs. I don't know if I can move that. Can I slide this up? Yep. There we go. So just to compare, the last estimate that was shown, the breakdown and then the total at the 1.566 million. And then based on the actual bids received, that's been revised to about 1.226. And again, in comparison to the 1.4 million that was identified on the CIP for budgeting purposes for the project. And again, just a summary of the costs, the estimate, the funding source would be the pavement management plan. And then as far as schedule, if the contract were to be awarded tonight, we would coordinate contracts with the contractor and identify a start date. The project would certainly not go from now until September. We purposely allowed a wide window that usually gives us a little bit more favorable prices so they can better fit it in their schedule. So not that lengthy of a project, but we did give a big window. It would be done at some point during the summer. So our recommendation, if council wishes to move forward, would be to award the contract to Wright and Company in the amount shown.
Okay, I need a motion in a second.
I'll motion.
I'll second.
Discussion.
I have a couple questions. Looking at the bids, well, one, I was thrilled, I guess, to see that, they were so close together. So,
Yeah.
For a change, I would say that everybody seemed to view the work as the same scope of work. So that's good. And that everybody seemed to be competitive. Nobody kind of threw us a $2 million number just to tell us that they didn't want the work.
Say they didn't want
Yeah, certainly tight bids. Yep.
So really, really competitive bids. Couple things that I was, on our apparent low bidder, had quite a bit less for common excavation. I don't know exactly what that is. I think that's just the general push the dirt around. And were you still comfortable with that they got the scope of work right there?
That's probably one of the biggest wild cards in these projects is the common excavation. What that is any excavated material on the site that has to be hauled off-site. And we don't know what they're doing with it. So we don't know if we're going to have to pay for the excavation and the hauling and to get rid of it, or if they have another site where they need material, it's actually a benefit to them so they can afford to bid it very low. So we will see common X prices all the way down to like $1 a yard, all the way up to $20 a yard. So depending on the material and what they have planned for it, we don't know that prior to bid. So I'm expecting, or I would make the assumption that that's probably why, is they have a home for it, if you will, or another use for it. Sometimes they even get paid on the backside, to be honest, because another site will actually pay them to haul
More
it.
likely than not, they get paid both ways.
Yeah.
Hauling both ways, yep.
Your expectation is that they're going to be moving around the same amount of dirt. It's just what they do with it after they.
Yeah, common excavation is off-site, so on this project certainly. Sometimes we have some on-site and some off-site, but this one's all to be removed from the site.
Okay. The other thing that stood out to me a little bit is that Wright seems to get a much better deal on Class 5 than everybody else.
Oh, I didn't look that close, but that could be.
They were about.
They get it right next door to them or something,
Or maybe they've got it. I don't know, but that.
On the plant.
Yeah, they're located right in Rogers. They're
about half the cost of the other bidders, and I guess that they're bidding on a volume, so that's their cost.
Yeah, and it's all tested for quality control, so it all has to pass the requirements of the mix. So they're not able to bring in a substandard material by any means. They may have a overage from another job or somewhere under contract. I don't know, but
yeah. Well, in that case, you're specifying the units. It's their unit cost, so that's on them regardless. But
exactly.
the cost is about half of what everybody else's was.
It means the change orders will be half what everyone else is.
Well, we'll always take that. Yeah, that's all I have. I thought it looked good.
Anybody else?
You first.
I'll go. So we've hashed this over again and again, so I think it's probably, and again, my concern is we are doing a road study that is going to tell us this summer what our funds versus needs ratio is, and I would like to see this wait a year. So I will be voting against it. If that study shows that we're in good shape, waiting a year is close to harmless. And if it shows otherwise, we will regret that we made this decision. But hopefully everybody's had enough look into it. So
I don't know if it'll have impact or not, but just an FYI, the pavement management assessment does not handle gravel roads. So that's a completely different consideration. We only manage the distresses of the paved surfaces.
no, what I'm getting at is we're looking at the whole city.
Oh, at
And
the
then we'll
cost for the
know
system.
we are in
Okay.
over our heads with road repairs.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure
No,
there's
I
not
get
going to
that.
be specific improvements to
No.
any gravel roads included in that
Yep,
report.
no, I
So,
get that.
okay,
That's
I see what you're saying.
So that's my piece.
I will second that. I mean, I don't disagree, this is gonna be a nice road to drive on. I don't agree with the idea that because Little Susie's down on the other end of 125th, we're gonna get there faster. Then my question would be, well, what about Tina that's over on Exanthus? Why are we not gonna pave that road too?
Does kind of beg that question.
I just, personally, I think it's a year early. We're moving it up because we want to, not because we need to.
All right.
So-
Any more? Go
I'll
ahead.
ask the fire chief if you want, I know he's commented this in the past, if there's anything you want to say out on this topic or not.
Mayor and members of council, yeah, I'll comment. I mean, the reality is we have limited roads that run north-south. Yes, it does have the ability to take traffic, but as Chief Inga indicated, we had an incident in the last couple months to the south end of the community where it's difficult to traverse that road in its current state. I try to stay off of it with our large trucks, especially this time of year, just because of the gravel and whatnot. So it might be a year early in some people's perspective. I respect that, but I think we really need to start to look at investing dollars into infrastructure that we lack within the community, and this happens to be one of them.
Thank you. I reached out to the police chief because I know he couldn't be here today. I'm going to read what he sent me, which is the police department's stance on paving Zanzibar Lane would be to pave it. I understand the costs associated with the paving, but currently the city only has roads to north and south that are paved, gain access to other southern part of the city. Since the police department has moved to the center of the city, I gotta follow. Whether emergency response is required or just routine when it is in good shape. There are certain times of year the officers will avoid Zanzibar Lane because the condition is causing longer response times. When Zanzibar is in poor condition and is used, it still adds response time because you cannot travel at speeds on unpaved roads. I gave the example of a 4-year-old not breathing in the southern portion of the city, and I could only travel at a rate slower than the posted speed due to the condition of Zanzibar. It was right after, he mentioned at the time of the council retreat. Thankfully, the child was breathing and alert when they arrived, but in circumstances like that, every minute counts. That's the end of what he said. I will add that we oftentimes complain the county does not do a good job of providing quality roads, and that the county wants to see somebody die before they actually make any stance. I think the stance of the city should be, when it comes to public safety, we should be doing the things needed before somebody dies versus afterwards. I look at the cost of this, and I say if it saves even just one life, it was money well spent. I'm not saying there's not other money that could be spent otherwhere on roads in the future. I think we can budget for those and make those happen. I also think when we look at traffic across the city, we oftentimes complain about the traffic that's at Dayton Road, at North Diamond, and at Pineview. Right now, the way it is, we have approximately somewhere between 20 and 30% of the residents sitting in Edgewater, Cypress Grove, River Hills, and Diamond View Estates. Top of that, there's more homes being built in Ion Gardens, the rest of Cypress Grove, and Riverwalk, which means that percentage is only going to go up. If those people want to go south right now, 9 out of 10 of them are going at those two bad intersections, which is Dayton Road, North Diamond, and Dayton Road and Pineview. On top of that,
And they're gonna anyway.
no, because now they can head south right down Zanzibar, and they can just cut over the other way,
Doesn't
and it will
save
save
any
time off of their commute.
No, it won't.
Yes, it will.
It's actually longer.
I live there, Scott. You going to tell me it's longer?
It's longer.
It's not
Drive it.
longer.
Drive it.
Okay.
You can't drive it
You guys-
because it's unpaved.
He'll bad it up.
Difference of
Bad it
opinion,
up. Yeah.
but if you measure it, both of us will get an answer.
Okay.
So,
It's gonna
To
be
me-
3-2. Just move on.
yeah, we can. Go ahead, Sarah, please.
Given the information that's presented to us by public safety from the city and the city's response, I believe that a vote no against this is a vote against public safety and a vote that sends a statement that the current traffic issues in the city are not a priority.
So now tonight we better do plans for Xanthus too, because little Susie that can happen next week on Xanthus.
I think that, so I.
If that's
I will
your
just
statement.
say that if
If
you're,
you're-
if
what
you're
you're saying-
If that's what I want to look at, I'm
What you're
fine.
saying is you don't care about it.
Nope, that's not what I'm
Xanthus.
saying. What I'm saying is if that's what I'm going to look at, Scott, I'm happy to look at that road as well. I think the major difference when looking at the two areas is where the police department is located is a direct line. If they have to go south, which is where the mayor has indicated he wants to see more growth in the future, right? If they have to go south, where we have homes, and we have a lot of new homes down there, they have to go around sometimes because the road is worse to go, it's quicker to go around than to go straight south, which would not be that way if it was paved.
I will tell you that when I hear the insult that says you don't care about people, I shut you down. I ignore everything you say after that. 'Cause
I'm
that's
telling
a
you what I
cop-out.
think
That's
about
just
no.
a big
Everything
Nope,
has
is
a
what that
dollar
is.
amount.
What?
Everything has a dollar amount.
I don't
assigned.
disagree with that. One bit. Everything costs money. I'm not saying it doesn't, but what I'm saying is this project is a project that helps reduce the response times for our
Sure.
team.
I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that.
And when we're talking medical emergencies, seconds count. So we can vote. That's fine. It still amazes me the price came in lower. We have everyone in the city
Sure.
saying we should do this, and we're still getting people to vote no on this. So
I don't disagree with that. The reason I'm voting no is because we're not looking at the entire picture. We're going to see a study that's going to probably be in excess of 10 million plus
yeah,
on what we need.
because we've been
Coming
under
forward.
budgeting for the roads in the city for a long time, but the taxes have been going down, so it's a good
Up
thing.
until about
A couple years ago.
4 years ago, that was correct. And we still brought the taxes down, thank you. If you don't like that, you can vote against those tax reductions. I had no problem with that.
I'm just saying, if everything costs money, but we don't want to get the money to pay for things that cost money, we're making a choice. And I think that the choice is clear on this one.
I'm just saying the timing is not right.
And that's exactly what I'm saying. I say, I would like to know where all of our, all of our resources versus needs are. But
Okay.
So I'm not as passionate about this one. I want to say that. I think that you can make a valid argument about what the right timing is, and I think it gets down to opinion. For me, I think that we know this road will change something, and for me, it's getting the life out of this investment before we change it again. I think that doing it sooner, the bids came in favorably. If these had gone over budget, I think I could have seen a way to say no on it, but they didn't. They came in under budget. The whole project is coming in under budget. We budgeted for it in this year, which I know there's some mystery around how it got onto this year that I don't think I understand either, but we did budget for it. We've got the project in front of us. The price is right, and I don't see a strong enough reason not to move forward with it, so I'm going to vote yes.
we good?
Go for a call.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. No. 3-2. You got a road?
Without any further ado,
And with that,
let's go eat dinner.
if there are no other items to be brought up, we can be adjourned. We are adjourned.